Chapter 102. As soon as Old Man Ji finished speaking, he suddenly flipped his right hand. Bang! An invisible pressure surged out, and in an instant, the Kanglan Palace shattered with a bang, causing countless fragments to fly all over the sky. The pressure that pressed down on Yi Xian and the others instantly disappeared without a trace, and Yi Xian and the others suddenly relaxed. In the night, moonlight poured down, and the entire land was covered in silver. Not far away from Yi Xian and the others stood an old man in a plain robe. The old man had long hair, his hands were behind his back, and his beard was so long that it almost reached his chest. Beside the old man stood a young man in his 20s, and his face was cold like a block of ice. The old man's gaze fell on Old Man Ji, peak of the myriad Dharma realm. I never thought that there would be a powerhouse like you in the tiny Azure province. Old Man Ji glanced at the old man. Grand Cloud Karaki Academy? The old man nodded. Grand Cloud Karaki Academy. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian not far away. You must be the Yi Xian who killed my Karaki Academy's disciple, Ganshi-san, in the secret domain. Yi Xian nodded and said frankly, that's me. The old man glanced at Yi Xian, and then said, your foundation is so solid, and you cultivate both the sword and martial arts. No, your physical body can also be considered as a body cultivator. Not to mention Azure Province, even in Great Cloud Realm, it is rare to see someone like you. At this point, he paused slightly, and then asked, before coming here, I did some research. It is said that you went to Karaki Academy that day and wanted to enter Karaki Academy, but you were rejected. Is it true? Yi Xian nodded. The old man shook his head. The teachers of Jianghu country's Karaki Academy are really stupid. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Although I was used by them this time, I don't want to say anything now that it has come to this. You killed Ganshi-san. The Dian Granary Academy will definitely avenge this. Yi Xian glanced at the youth beside the plain-robed old man. I'll fight him one-on-one? The plain-robed old man nodded. However, no matter if you win or lose, you must die today. As he spoke, he glanced at Old Man Ji and the rest. I should say that all of you must die. Hearing this, everyone came to a slight understanding. The Grand Cloud Grain Academy had obviously sent this youth here because they wanted this youth to kill Yi Xian. If this youth killed Yi Xian, then that would naturally be for the best. The Grand Cloud Grain Academy would be able to help this youth become famous this time. Moreover, the world wouldn't say that the Grand Cloud Grain Academy was bullying the weak. If the young man was defeated, then it was fine. The plain-robed old man would kill Yi Xian with a wave of his hand. In this way, Dian Granary Academy would be able to use this to deter these powers in the Azure Prefecture. Yi Xian naturally understood the old man's intentions. He looked at Old Man Ji, and Old Man Ji said indifferently, fight. Fight. Yi Xian did not waste any time and directly rushed towards the youth in the distance. Since he said fight, then fight. At the instant that Yi Xian moved, the youth by the old man's side had instantly vanished on the spot. In the next moment. Bang! An explosion suddenly resounded. In next to no time, two figures retreated explosively, and both Yi Xian and the youth had returned to where they stood just moments ago. They just stopped when the limestone beneath their feet instantly cracked apart. The youth by the old man's side glanced coldly at Yi Xian, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground. Bang! The ground beneath Yi Xian's feet suddenly cracked apart, and then a formidable force instantly blasted Yi Xian over 30 m back. Yi Xian had just stopped moving when the youth suddenly leaped up like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. The youth instantly charged over 30 m away and arrived in front of Yi Xian. In the next moment, the youth's leg suddenly smashed down towards Yi Xian. His leg actually emanated a strand of faint golden light, and a sharp sound of something tearing apart resounded. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly as he clenched his right hand into a fist, and then he smashed his fist upwards. I'll smash your head apart with a single punch. This punch didn't just carry momentum, it carried battle intent as well. Monstrous battle intent. A single punch. Bang! The youth was blasted flying, and he smashed down in front of the old man, causing a small hole to be smashed open on the ground. The youth crawled up from the ground, wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and then stared fixedly at Yi Xian. A martial Dao Grandmaster. A martial Dao Grandmaster. Everyone here was slightly shocked, including Mo Yinqi's group of 3. They knew that Yi Xian had comprehended battle intent, but comprehending battle intent didn't represent that he was a martial Dao Grandmaster. In the past, Yi Xian wasn't a martial Dao Grandmaster. Yet now, this punch of his had absolutely attained the standard of a martial Dao Grandmaster. The might of this punch was comparable to an earth-rank martial technique. Moreover, it was such a casual punch. Yi Xian's face was emotionless as he slowly clenched his right hand. At this moment, he only wanted to fight and didn't want to waste his breath. The youth suddenly vanished on the spot in the distance. Hiss! A shadow flashed over in Yi Xian's field of vision. What swift speed! Yi Xian's face remained emotionless as he raised his hand and smashed his fist forward. Bang! The shadow was instantly blasted into pieces. At the same time, a figure smashed down by the old man's side. It was the youth. The youth immediately stood up, wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth, and was just about to attack again when the old man spoke abruptly, "There's no need." Yi Xian glanced at old man Ji, who was already engaged in a battle with the old man in the plain robe. Escape at this time? In a rational situation, they should escape. However, he was very clear that they couldn't escape at all. Because he had already sensed some obscure auras in the surroundings, and it was already an inescapable trap. There was nowhere to escape. These people were here to destroy Zhanglan Academy, and they were also here to kill him. They had nowhere to escape. Escape? Hide and cultivate and take revenge in the future? Those people would never agree to that. The objective of those people was to eliminate the root of the problem to prevent revenge in the future. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared not far away from Yi Xian and the others. It was Li Xuanzang, and beside him was a black-robed man. Li Xuanzang glanced at old man Ji, who was engaged in a battle not far away, then looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You seem to have no backing. Now, you can die." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly disappeared on the spot. When he found out that those experts had come to Zhanglan Academy, he immediately rushed over. Now was the best time to eliminate a great threat, so he naturally wouldn't miss this rare opportunity. In the distance, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and was about to make a move, but at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Bang! With a loud explosion, Li Xuanzang returned to his original position. In front of Yi Xian was the 9th floor master of the Drunken Immortal Inn, and not far away was Jianghu. Both of them were staring coldly at Li Xuanzang and old man Ji. Li Xuanzang's face instantly turned gloomy when he saw them. 9th floor master, Jianghu, do the two of you really intend to go against my Zhanglan Academy? The 9th floor master glanced coldly at Li Xuanzang, and then he turned to look at Yi Xian. "My young friend, the two of us can only help you stop these two. There are at least 6 Dharma realm experts here tonight, and they're watching from the shadows and might attack at any moment. Besides that, I believe that the dark dimension has definitely sent someone here. I don't know exactly where this person is." Yi Xian suddenly said, "I've already notified my master." Master. The 9th floor master was stunned when he heard this. In the next moment, he suddenly turned to look at Li Xuanzang and roared with laughter, "Li Xuanzang, your Zhanglan Academy has committed many acts of injustice. My Immortal Inn has been unable to tolerate your actions for a long time. Today, my Immortal Inn will help the Jiang Kingdom eliminate a great scourge like you." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged directly at Li Xuanzang. Chapter 103. Enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? Li Xuanzang spoke ferociously, "What's wrong with you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the 9th floor master had already charged over to him. Bang! An explosion resounded like a thunderclap, and then the two of them parted as soon as they collided. Li Xuanzang stared fixedly at the ninth-floor master. Your Immortal Indulgence Pavilion isn't a good person, yet you want to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? Is there something wrong with your fucking head? The ninth-floor master glanced coldly at Li Xuanzang. What's with all the nonsense? Just come and fight. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished once more. When he saw that the ninth-floor master was determined to fight, Li Xuanzang had completely given up on the idea of negotiating. He didn't waste his breath and directly entered into battle with the ninth-floor master. Bang! Bang! Not long after, a series of earth-shattering noises rang out from their surroundings. On the other side, Jianghu stared fixedly at the black-robed man in front of him. After all, he and the ninth-floor master would definitely come tonight. He'd done so much earlier, and if he didn't come tonight, then everything would have been in vain. Especially Jianghu. He'd invested in Yi Xian, and if Yi Xian died, then everything would be meaningless. Not only would it be meaningless, but Kuraki Academy would even take revenge on him. The black-robed man suddenly said, he actually made you bet the entire Jiang Kingdom's imperial family? Jianghu spoke indifferently. Kuraki Academy has committed numerous crimes, and they should be eliminated. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot. Not far away, the black-robed man also disappeared from where he stood. Yi Xian turned to look at Mo Yunqi and the others. All of you leave. Leave? Mo Yunqi and the others were stunned. Yi Xian glanced at them and said, the three of you leave right now. Mo Yunqi spoke in a low voice, Bandit Yi, what's the meaning of this? Yi Xian turned to look towards the distance and spoke softly, there's really no need for all of you to die here. Now, he understood the situation clearly. Zhanglan Academy's headquarters didn't care about this, and Old Man Ji couldn't endure so much pressure by himself. He was in a hopeless situation. Was he lost? Naturally, he was a little confused. Reality was cruel and helpless. He, Yi Xian, was ultimately not a sword immortal who could cut off all troubles with a single strike of his sword. The helplessness of the weak. Yi Xian had already experienced this before, and now, he understood it even more deeply. When you were weak, you could only resign yourself to fate. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi suddenly said, Bandit Yi, your words are not good enough. Yi Xian looked at Mo Yunqi, and Mo Yunqi said in a low voice, if we escape at this time and leave you and Old Man Ji here, are we still King human? Yes, although it's useless for us to stay here, we can still die together. Let's die together. If they stayed, they would really die together. Yi Xian still wanted to say something, but Mo Yunqi shook his head. Zhanglan Academy is your home, and also our home. Run away, drag out an ignoble existence. Although King want to do that, I really can't bring myself to do it. Let's face it together. Don't try to persuade me. If you continue, I'm afraid I'll be tempted. Not far away, Baizhe glanced at Mo Yunqi. You're still considered a man. Mo Yunqi glared at Baizhe. What do you mean considered? I'm a man to begin with. Baizhe said seriously, I couldn't tell before. Mo Yunqi, at the side, Yi Xian glanced at the few people fighting in the distance, and after a moment, he slowly closed his eyes. Second floor guru. Can I have a chat? No response. Yi Xian said again, do you want to come out? At this time, a white piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On the paper, there were a few claw marks, and these claw marks formed a circle. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. What did this mean? Suddenly, another piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On the paper were two circles formed by claw marks. No, Yi Xian carefully discovered that there was a slight difference between these two circles. He put the two pieces of paper together, and then discovered that the circle on the second piece of paper seemed to roll forward a little. Roll? Yi Xian was stunned. Was this King asking him to roll? Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. Guru, can't we talk? From the second floor, a piece of paper floated down. On the paper, there was nothing. Yi Xian was stunned, and soon, his face darkened. There was nothing. This F*King meant that there was nothing to talk about. Yi Xian still wanted to say something. At this time, another 2 pieces of paper floated out. On the paper, there were still 2 circles formed by claw marks. Obviously, this was asking him to roll. Yi Xian's face twitched, not giving him any face at all. He glanced at the 2nd floor, and he finally understood. This guy on the 2nd floor was probably waiting for him to die. Once he died, maybe this guy on the 2nd floor could come out. Or, he could take the opportunity to snatch the tower. Yi Xian shook his head. He was also a fool, hoping that this guy on the 2nd floor would help him fight. It was already good enough that this guy didn't hit him. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked up, and then said, "Senior, are you there? Call for help?" Damn, at this time, he naturally had to think of a way to call for help. At this time, if he still didn't call for help, then it wasn't stubbornness, it was stupidity. Unfortunately, the mysterious woman didn't respond. Yi Xian called out a few more times, but still no response. Yi Xian sighed softly, and then left the prison pagoda. Yi Xian looked up. Not far away, there was still a fierce battle, especially between Old Man Ji and the plain-robed old man. The 2 of them were equally matched, and these 2 were also fighting the most fiercely. On the other side, the 9th floor master of the drunken Immortal restaurant and Jiang Yuetian's group of 4 were not really fighting. The 4 of them were restraining each other. Yi Xian retracted his gaze, and he looked around. In the darkness, there were still many people watching. None of them were weak. These people weren't stupid. They all wanted the people of Great Cloud Empire to be the vanguard, and when necessary, these people would definitely make a move. For example, when Old Man Ji was defeated. At that time, these people wouldn't have any scruples. Old Man Ji. Yi Xian looked at the distant sky, where Old Man Ji was still fighting, and said softly, "Old Mo, old Bai, olden. Today, perhaps everyone will really die here." Mo Yinchi sighed softly. He took out a piece of paper and a brush, and then began to write. Bai Zai glanced at Mo Yinchi. "What are you doing?" Mo Yinchi glanced at Bai Zai, "Writing a will." "What else can I do?" "Will." Bai Zai said softly, "Who will send it to you?" Mo Yinchi stopped, and after a moment, he shook his head. "Who cares, write it first." Then, he glanced at Bai Zai. "What about you?" Bai Zai shook his head. "Who am I writing to?" Mo Yinchi was startled. "You don't have a family?" Bai Zai shook his head again. "I was raised by wild beasts in the mountains." Raised by wild beasts. Yi Xian and Ji Anji looked at Bai Zai, a little surprised. Mo Yinchi sighed softly. "Big guy, I didn't know you were so pitiful." Bai Zai said calmly, "My adoptive father is the demon general. The entire Mount Mang belongs to my family." Mo Yinchi's expression froze. F***ck, boom. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion in the distant sky, and soon, the entire ground shook violently, and then, layer by layer, it collapsed. The expressions of Yi Xian and the rest changed drastically, and they all retreated. Boom! Another explosion came from the horizon, and then, 2 figures separated in the sky. It was Old Man Ji and the plain-robed elder. The plain-robed elder glanced at Old Man Ji. His expression was rather solemn. "No wonder Tsanglan Academy has not fallen for so many years. With a powerhouse like you around, I'm afraid anyone who wants to touch you will have to think twice before doing so." Old Man Ji took the wine gourd from his waist and took a big gulp, and the wine flowed down the corner of his mouth. After a moment, he kept the wine gourd, and then looked down at Yi Xian and the rest below. "Do you regret entering Tsanglan Academy?" Yi Xian shook his head. No. He did not regret joining Tsanglan Academy. If not for Old Man Ji, he did not know what would have happened to his sister. Moreover, after coming to Tsanglan Academy, he also met Mo Yinchi and the rest, and he felt very comfortable here. Chapter 104. I can't protect you anymore. In an instant, tears welled up in the eyes of Yi Xian and the others. Yi Xian gripped Old Man Ji's hand tightly. Only now did he realize that he had long since regarded Old Man Ji as family. Family. Mo Yinchi was the same. At that moment, he no longer had the slightest bit of carelessness. His face was already covered in tears. Bai Zhe clenched his fists tightly. He did not cry, but his eyes had long since become misty. Jianghu lowered his head in silence. Old Man Ji's aura grew weaker and weaker. He swept his gaze over the four of them one by one. In the end, his gaze fell on Yi Xian. After I leave, you will be the dean of Tsanglan Academy. Promise me that you will take good care of them. Don't let them be bullied. Yi Xian nodded and choked with sobs. All right. Old Man Ji smiled faintly. This smile caused a lot of blood to seep out between his fingers that were covering his throat. He turned his head to look at the distant horizon. 2 things. First, if possible, please bring back the corpses of the students from the Shao Dao and Song Mountain. You are now the dean, so you have this responsibility. Second, I come from the Central Divine Continent's Tsanglan Academy's headquarters. I am worthy of being a student of Tsanglan Academy, but I have failed my master. If possible in the future, please go to the Tsanglan Academy's headquarters on my behalf and kowtow to him 3 times on my behalf. Tell him that I will repay his kindness in my next life. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky. In the next moment, a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian and the others. In the blink of an eye, this force directly transported Yi Xian and the others to the foot of Tsanglan Mountain. Meanwhile, Old Man Ji himself soared into the sky. In the next moment, a powerful aura swept out from his body. This force was so strong that it caused the expressions of everyone in the surroundings to change. Nearby, the plain-robed elder stared at Old Man Ji in shock. At this moment, Old Man Ji suddenly charged at the plain-robed elder. Right at this moment, 2 figures silently appeared on both sides of Old Man Ji. When he saw the 2 figures, Old Man Ji slowly closed his eyes. Take them away. In the next moment, boom! A powerful force suddenly exploded from Old Man Ji's body. This force was so strong that even Old Man Ji himself was instantly turned into a bloody mist. Self-detonation at the peak of 10,000 Arts Realm. How terrifying was that power? In the air, the 2 figures that had just appeared on Old Man Ji's left and right were instantly sent flying several hundred meters away. The plain-robed old man immediately retreated with the youth next to him. Not only him, but all the experts in the surroundings also retreated rapidly at that moment. In an instant, half of the peak of Mount Azure below was directly shaken by that force. The moment Old Man Ji chose to self-detonate, the 9th floor master and Jianghu suddenly appeared at the foot of the mountain before Yi Xian's group. The 9th floor master glanced at Yi Xian's group of 4, and then he said in a low voice, "Come, let's go to the Drunken Immortal Inn first." To the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Jianghu looked at the 9th floor master in disbelief. Bringing Yi Xian to the Drunken Immortal Inn was like bringing fire to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Was the Drunken Immortal Inn really going to bet everything on Yi Xian? Yi Xian's group of 4 was also in disbelief. The 9th floor master actually wanted them to go to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Now, the 4 of them could be said to be being pursued by more than 10 Dharma realm experts. If they went to the Drunken Immortal Inn, it was equivalent to bringing fire to the Drunken Immortal Inn. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and wanted to say something. At this moment, the 9th floor master suddenly said, "Don't waste time." As he spoke, he glanced at Jianghu. "Brother Jiang, take them and leave with me." After saying that, he waved his right hand and directly disappeared on the spot with Yi Xian and Jianghu. Jianghu was stunned for a moment, then he took a deep breath, "Then let's bet." After saying that, he directly disappeared on the spot with Mo Yinchi and Bai Zhe. As soon as the few of them disappeared, Li Xuanzang and a black-robed man appeared where they originally stood. Li Xuanzang stared at the few shadows in the distant sky. Is the Drunken Immortal Inn fucking crazy? He really couldn't understand it. The Drunken Immortal Inn actually dared to offend so many forces in order to protect Yi Xian and the others. Moreover, it was blatantly offending them. There were more than a dozen Dharma realm experts in the surroundings, and there were even 3 or 4 peak Dharma realm experts among them. Most importantly, there was also the Great Fortune Granary Academy and the Assassin Organization from the Dark World. These 2 forces weren't third-rate forces. The drunken immortal and actually dared to offend both of them at the same time? The black-robed man beside Li Xuanzang said in a deep voice, "He definitely has something to rely on." Rely on? Li Xuanzang said ferociously, "No matter what he's relying on, Yi Xian and the others must die today." After saying that, he glanced around. This person has reached the martial Dao Grandmaster realm at such a young age, and he's even a sword Dao Grandmaster. If he doesn't die, once he becomes a sword master or even a sword emperor realm swordsman in the future, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing for all of you. After a moment of silence, the plain-robed old man quickly led the young man beside him into the sky. Yi Xian must die. They were all old monsters who had lived for so many years, so they naturally understood the principle of cutting weeds and eliminating the roots. If the weeds were not eliminated, it might bring about a disaster in the future. Seeing those people move, Li Xuanzang grinned and said, "All right, today even your drunken immortal restaurant will be eradicated." After saying that, he and the black-robed man disappeared on the spot. The imperial capital tonight was destined to not be peaceful. Drunken immortal restaurant. The 9th building master and Jianghu Tian soon brought Yi Xian and the others to the drunken immortal restaurant. The drunken immortal restaurant was located in the center of the imperial capital and had a total of 9 floors. Of course, this was only a branch of the drunken immortal restaurant in the country of Jianghu. The 9th building master brought Yi Xian and the others to the 9th floor. He walked to the window and looked around. "Those who have nothing to do with this, leave quickly." His voice was like thunder as it spread out. Soon, the people around the drunken immortal restaurant fled. It should be said that there were not many people around. Almost everything within dozens of miles of the drunken immortal restaurant belonged to the drunken immortal restaurant. After clearing the people, the 9th building master suddenly shouted angrily, "Get out of the array." His voice fell. Boom! A blue light pillar suddenly shot into the sky from the first floor of the drunken immortal restaurant. This light pillar instantly enveloped the entire drunken immortal restaurant. At this moment, the entire drunken immortal restaurant was tightly enveloped by this blue light. Apart from that, countless tadpole-like golden runes appeared on the blue light walls. These runes were like tiny snakes that constantly swam around the drunken immortal restaurant. An array formation. In the 9th floor, Jianghu Tian glanced at the 9th building master and said in a low voice, "This should be the drunken immortal restaurant's famous 9 spirits array." The 9th building master nodded. Jianghu Tian said in a low voice, "Opening it once costs at least 300,000 supreme-grade spirit stones, and activating it once costs at least 500,000. As he said that, he took a deep look at the 9th building master. This drunken immortal restaurant really spent a lot to protect Yi Xian and the others. The 9th building master shook his head. Money is just worldly possessions. It's not worth mentioning. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yunqi said softly, "This is the first time I feel that the drunken immortal restaurant is very loyal." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the 9th building master looked at Yi Xian. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Little friend, when will your master arrive?" "Your master?" Everyone looked at Yi Xian. In fact, they had already guessed that Yi Xian definitely had a master behind him. After all, it was impossible for Yi Xian to learn sword principle by himself. If that was the case, then he was not a monster, but abnormal. Now that the 9th building master asked, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Curious. Especially Jianghu Tian. He was extremely curious about who Yi Xian's master was. Who could make the drunken immortal restaurant protect Yi Xian at all costs? At this moment, the 9th building master was actually quite perturbed. No, he was very perturbed. He had taken the initiative to bring Yi Xian and the others to the drunken immortal restaurant because he wanted to provide timely help and protect Yi Xian. So long as he protected Yi Xian, not only would he be able to help the drunken immortal restaurant make friends with a sword immortal, he would also be able to make friends with Yi Xian. Then, Yi Xian's future would be limitless. It could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. But the precondition was that Yi Xian's master had to arrive. If he couldn't, then everyone would be dead. Moreover, he would offend countless formidable powers for the drunken immortal restaurant, especially Dian Granary Academy and the Dark World. At that time, he would be a sinner of the drunken immortal restaurant. Even dying 100 times wouldn't be enough. Yi Xian was just about to speak when a powerful force suddenly blasted the drunken immortal restaurant. Bang! The entire drunken immortal restaurant shook violently. Everyone turned around and saw a group of people had suddenly appeared outside the drunken immortal restaurant. The person in the lead was the old man in a plain robe from Dian Granary Academy, and Li Xuanzang and the black-robed old man weren't too far away from the old man. Moreover, there were over 10 people standing not too far away from the three of them. All of them were actually at the Dharma realm. Over 10 Dharma realm experts. This was probably the first time such a lineup had appeared in the history of the kingdom of Jianghu. The expressions of everyone on the 9th floor turned solemn when they saw this lineup. Even the 9th building master's expression was slightly unsightly at this moment. This lineup. How could they resist it? Li Xuanzang gazed coldly at the 9th building master. Since your drunken immortal restaurant wants to become enemies with us, then die with us. As soon as he finished speaking, he soared into the sky and slapped his palm towards the drunken immortal restaurant from afar. Bang! The drunken immortal restaurant shook violently while traces of cracks instantly appeared on the walls of light. The 9th building master spoke fiercely, "Activate the formation." Bang! Countless dazzling beams of light suddenly shot out from the walls of light that enveloped the drunken immortal restaurant, and every single beam of light carried a strand of formidable force. In midair, Li Xuanzang's eyes narrowed slightly as he turned to look at the old man and the others. What are you waiting for? Let's attack together to prevent any unexpected events from occurring. The old man and the others exchanged glances, and then they vanished on the spot in the next moment. How terrifying was it when over 10 Dharma realm experts attacked at the same time? Bang! Those formidable beams of light practically vanished without a trace in an instant. At the same time, over 10 formidable forces suddenly blasted onto the drunken immortal restaurant. Bang! An enormous explosion suddenly resounded throughout the imperial capital. In an instant, the entire drunken immortal restaurant rumbled and collapsed, causing dust and rubble to shoot into the sky. But in next to no time, the rubble and dust were directly dispersed by Li Xuanzang and the others. Yi Xian and the others had just crawled up from within the ruins when two figures smashed down before them. It was the 9th building master and Jianghu Tian. Crushed. Crushed without any suspense. In next to no time, over 10 formidable forces suddenly enveloped Yi Xian and the others. Bang! In an instant, Yi Xian and the others were instantly suppressed to the ground. Not only that, but at this moment, all the bones in their bodies were cracking. Yi Xian wanted to stand up, but at this moment, Li Xuanzang suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and a formidable force instantly enveloped Yi Xian. Pooh! A mouthful of blood sprayed from Yi Xian's mouth. Li Xuanzang looked coldly at Yi Xian. I want you to understand that not joining my Karaki Academy was the greatest mistake of your life, and it wasn't my Karaki Academy's mistake. As he spoke, he glanced at Imo Yunqi and Bai Zhe who stood by Yi Xian's side, and in the next moment, his figure shook. Bang! Bai Zhe and Imo Yunqi were directly blasted hundreds of meters away, and as soon as they landed on the ground, they spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Li Xuanzang gazed at Yi Xian and laughed fiercely. You killed so many students of my Karaki Academy. Today, I'll make you watch as your friends die before you. As soon as he finished speaking, he kicked with his right foot. Bang! In the next moment, Bai Zhe, Mo Yunqi, and Ji Anji's stomachs were pierced by the 3 rocks. Yi Xian's eyes almost split apart from rage when he witnessed this scene, and he suddenly roared furiously. Bang! A strand of powerful battle intent suddenly surged out from within him. It wasn't just battle intent, there was sword intent as well. The appearance of these two intents had actually forcefully resisted Li Xuanzang's pressure. In the next moment, his figure shook, and he charged at Li Xuanzang with his sword in hand. Everyone in the surroundings had shock in their eyes when they witnessed this scene. Li Xuanzang was at the peak of the Dharma realm. However, Yi Xian was actually able to forcefully resist his pressure. The most terrifying part was that Yi Xian wasn't just a grandmaster in the martial Dao, he was a grandmaster in the sword Dao as well. A dual cultivator in the martial Dao and the sword. A monster. That was what everyone thought at this moment. There was a trace of shock in Li Xuanzang's eyes as well. There was a few realms of cultivation between him and Yi Xian, yet Yi Xian's intents were able to forcefully resist his pressure. That was truly quite terrifying. The killing intent in Li Xuanzang's eyes grew denser when he thought up to here. He felt even more fortunate that he'd chosen to stop at nothing to eliminate Yi Xian. Otherwise, based on the speed at which Yi Xian grew, he would definitely become a great enemy of Kuraki Academy in the future. Meanwhile, Yi Xian had charged over to Li Xuanzang, and Li Xuanzang waved his right hand. Bang! Yi Xian was blasted over 300 m away, and he'd just descended to the ground when the ground in an area of over 100 m beneath him instantly cracked apart. Yi Xian lay on the ground while blood flowed incessantly from the corners of his mouth. Li Xuanzang walked slowly towards Yi Xian and the others. I told you that you're dead. This time, even the gods won't be able to save you. Beside Yi Xian, Mo Yinshi wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth as he glanced at the nearby Yi Xian. Bandit Yi. I really don't think I can make it this time. I'll make a move first. In front of Yi Xian, Li Xuanzang grinned sinisterly and said, Why? Don't you have a backer? Call him out, go on and call him out. With that said, he kicked Yi Xian's abdomen. Bang! Yi Xian was sent flying to the ground hundreds of feet away. This time, his body was torn apart. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly sat up and punched his chest, forcefully suppressing the intense discomfort in his heart. The next moment, a golden earth character appeared between his brows. At the same time, the prison pagoda in Yi Xian's body trembled slightly. Immediately after, an illusory Shao Ta appeared between his brows. But at this moment, his consciousness had actually started to blur. At this moment, the earth character between Yi Xian's brows and the illusory Shao Ta had vanished. Within his body, the prison pagoda had completely calmed down. A sigh resounded without any warning. Li Xuanzang was stunned. In the next moment, he turned his head to look at the sky. Everyone else turned their heads to look as well. A bright moon hung in the distant sky, and beneath it stood a woman in a plain dress. Her back was facing everyone, and her long hair reached her waist. Her hands were placed behind her back, and there were two objects, one black and one white, between her fingertips. At this moment, the woman suddenly opened her right hand. Sword. In an instant, all the trees in the imperial capital shook violently, and then the leaves of those trees suddenly shot into the sky. In an instant, the entire sky above the imperial capital was covered in leaves. In the next moment, the leaves converged like rivers flowing into the ocean to form a green sword, and then it fell firmly into the woman's palm. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the sword in the woman's hand suddenly vanished, and it was pressed against the center of Li Xuanzang's forehead when it appeared once more. After that, the woman's voice resounded. I'm his backer. You're not convinced? Chapter 105. Everyone in the surroundings was completely stunned. Who was Li Xuanzang? The peak of 10,000 arts realm. Not to mention Jianghu country, even in the entire Qingzhou, it was one of the best. But at that moment, Li Xuanzang was subdued with a single strike. Moreover, the sword was so swift that no one in the surroundings could see it clearly. What kind of expert was this? Everyone's eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the plainly dressed woman. On the other hand, the ninth-floor master's face was filled with excitement, or rather, madness. Even though he was seriously injured, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. He had won the bet. There really was someone behind Yi Xian, and it was King Sword Immortal. The ninth floor master seemed to have thought of something. He slapped Jiang Yuetian's shoulder and said, "Old Jiang, you won't regret it, right?" Huh. Jiang Yuetian stared blankly at the girl in the distance. Li Xuanzang's expression was the most interesting. The moment the sword was pressed against his forehead, he didn't even have time to react. It was because he couldn't react in time. What kind of expert could achieve such a feat? At that moment, the black-robed man beside Li Xuanzang suddenly turned around and fled. He was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in the sky. But at that moment, the sword at Li Xuanzang's glabella suddenly vanished. The next moment, a bloody head suddenly fell slowly from the distant sky. Instant kill. Everyone in the surroundings was astounded to the extreme when they witnessed this scene, including Li Xuanzang. How powerful was the black-robed man? He was also in the Dharma realm. He was instantly killed just like that. It was an instant kill. Not far away, the plain-robed old man from Omura Granary Academy had an expression of disbelief as well. Under the moonlight, although the woman's face could not be seen, she was still as beautiful as a painting. She was like a goddess from the upper realm, untainted by the mortal world. The plain-robed elder stared at the plain-robed woman. You are a sword immortal. You. Right at this moment, the woman in a plain dress stretched out her hand lightly. Chi. Without any warning, the plain-robed old man's head flew into the air. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned. The plain-robed old man, who was at the peak of the 10,000 techniques realm, was killed in an instant. Even the ninth floor master, who was standing not too far away, was dumbfounded. Wasn't that the peak of 10,000 arts realm? He was killed just like that. However, when he remembered that the person in front of him was a sword immortal, he felt relieved. A sword immortal. Had there ever been a sword immortal in the entire Azure state? There were experts who were not weaker than sword immortals, but there had never been a sword immortal. On the other side, the surrounding 10,000 laws realm experts were already trembling. Suddenly, a green sword flashed through the battlefield, and then... Chi. Not far away in the sky, two afterimages fell from the sky without any warning, and then they were nailed to the ground by two sword lights. These two people were the two experts from the dark world who had killed Old Man Ji earlier. At this moment, the two of them were nailed to the ground. They stared at the woman in the plain dress under the moonlight, their eyes filled with horror. At this moment, a Dharma realm expert suddenly stood up and bowed deeply to the woman in the plain dress. Senior, the plain-dressed woman suddenly shook her head. Don't say anything. Let me kill a few people in peace. As her voice fell, her jade-like hand gently pointed at the old man who had spoken. Chi. The old man's head flew into the air without any warning. In the next moment, the woman in a plain dress made a light gesture with her fair hand, and then the green sword flashed through the air like a butterfly flying through flowers. Hiss. 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 In practically an instant, the heads of over 10 Dharma realm experts in the surroundings had fallen to the ground. Moreover, over 10 strands of blood sprayed into the air, and it was an extremely magnificent scene. 6 people were still alive on the ground below. Besides the 9th Pavilion Master and Jiang Yuetian, there was Li Xuanzang, the 2 assassins from the Dark Dimension, and the young man from Dian Karaki Academy that the plain-robed old man had brought here earlier. At this moment, Li Xuanzang's face was ashen. A sword immortal. He knew that there was definitely someone standing behind Yi Xian, but he'd never imagined that it would be a sword immortal standing behind Yi Xian. When he thought up to here, Li Xuanzang couldn't help but glance coldly at Yi Xian who lay on the ground nearby. At this moment, he couldn't help but curse in his heart. Why didn't you say so earlier that you had a sword immortal standing behind you? If I did, then how could I have fallen to such a state? Unfortunately, he'd never thought about it. Even if Yi Xian had told him, he wouldn't have believed it. Or it should be said that no one would have believed him. A sword immortal? An existence that's practically never appeared in Pine Prefecture. Suddenly, a green sword was pressed against the center of Li Xuanzang's forehead, and then the woman's voice resounded. Didn't you want to look for me just now? Li Xuanzang stared fixedly at the woman, and then he suddenly revealed a savage smile. You can kill me, but you can't. At this moment, the green sword suddenly trembled violently. Along with a sword howl, Li Xuanzang's body fell to the ground. However, his soul was being stared fixedly at by the green sword. Li Xuanzang gazed at the woman with disbelief. No. Separating the soul from the body. How could you possibly accomplish that? Suddenly, the woman's voice resounded. If you're still alive, then you can get up and learn a new sword technique. As soon as she finished speaking, Yi Xian, who was lying on the ground, suddenly moved, and it didn't take long for him to crawl up. Even though his entire body was covered in injuries and was in a horrible state, he still crawled up. After he crawled up, he immediately walked over to Mo Yunqi's side, and then he kicked Mo Yunqi's foot lightly. Stop playing dead. Get up. Mo Yunqi suddenly opened his eyes and gazed at Yi Xian. How did you know that I'm still alive? As soon as he spoke, blood seeped out of his mouth. Yi Xian spoke indifferently. You farted just now. Mo Yunqi was speechless. After that, Yi Xian walked over to Bai Zai and Jianghu. Both of them weren't dead, but they were on the verge of it. Obviously, Li Xuanzang had intended to torture them just now, so he hadn't chosen to kill them. Yi Xian poured out 2 golden sour elixirs and fed them to the two. Bai Zai looked at Yi Xian and said, I want to become stronger. Yi Xian nodded. Put on your pants first. Bai Zai had been sent flying from the impact, so his pants were already tattered. It should be said that they were all gone. At this moment, it could be said that a large portion of his spring scenery was exposed. Bai Zai was speechless. Yi Xian walked in front of Jianghu, who looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian patted Jianghu's shoulder lightly, then he turned and walked to a spot not far away. He bowed slightly at the plain-dressed woman in the sky. In the sky, the plain-dressed woman spoke indifferently. How does it feel to be bullied? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, not good. The plain-dressed woman said calmly, but you will still be bullied in the future. Remember, if your temper is greater than your strength, then you are an idiot. If you have a temper, that's fine. For example, like me, I can chop whoever I want. With that said, the green sword suddenly flew to the side. Chi! Not far away, the head of a dark world assassin that had been nailed to the ground instantly flew into the air. Yi Xian was speechless. The plain-dressed woman spoke indifferently. Did you vent your anger? Yi Xian nodded. The plain-dressed woman said, but you don't have the strength to do so. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment before he said, I'm still young. Young? The plain-dressed woman said coldly, when I was your age, I was already invincible in the world. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman in a plain dress said, never mind. I'm afraid there won't be another outstanding person like me in the myriad of worlds in the universe. Yi Xian's face darkened. At this moment, the plain-dressed woman's right hand suddenly moved, and the green sword pressed against Li Xuanzang's soul body. This sword skill is called soul fixation. As the name implies, it targets the soul. If the opponent is a soul body, the might of your strike will increase by more than a few times. It's fine even if the opponent doesn't have a soul. Soul fixation will target his soul. Many people in the world have powerful bodies but weak souls. Soul fixation is a strike that targets their weakness. Once your sword strikes, all demons, ghosts, and spirits will be transformed into nothingness. Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. All right, I'll learn it. The plain-dressed woman nodded slightly. This sword technique is also a type of sword Dao faith. As for what kind of faith it is, comprehend it yourself. If you can comprehend it, then it's your ability. If you can't, then you have to comprehend it for me. Don't embarrass me. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the plain-dressed woman moved her hands slightly. Hiss. The green sword pierced Li Xuanzang's soul, and in an instant, Li Xuanzang completely disappeared from this world. The nearby ninth-floor master and Jianghu Tian couldn't help but shiver at this scene. She killed him like he was killing a chicken. That was a Dharma realm expert. She killed him just like that. Meanwhile, the green sword suddenly arrived above the ninth-floor master and Jianghu Tian's heads. Their expressions changed drastically when they witnessed this scene. Right at this moment, Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Moss." At this moment, the mysterious woman said indifferently, "Don't worry, I'm not going to kill them." Hearing this, the ninth-floor master and Jianghu Tian immediately heaved sighs of relief. At this moment, the mysterious woman's voice sounded again. "If it weren't for the two of you, I'm afraid he wouldn't even have a corpse left. Forget it." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her finger, and 2 rays of sword light suddenly entered their bodies. Their bodies trembled violently. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman suddenly said, "These 2 rays of sword light can eliminate all the impurities within your bodies. Both of you can improve in a year at most." Both of them were stunned when they heard this, and then they knelt down on one knee at the same time. Thank you." Both of their voices were trembling. Right at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly swept over from afar, and it didn't take long for a black-robed old man to appear within their fields of vision. It didn't take long for the black-robed old man to appear here. He glanced at the plain-robed old man's corpse on the ground, and his expression instantly turned cold when he saw that the old man had been sliced into pieces. It didn't take long for him to turn around to look at the woman in a plain dress, and he spoke ferociously, "Who gave you the gall to kill a member of my Grand Cloud Granary Academy?" The ninth-floor master and Jianghu Tian had extremely strange expressions on their faces. After a moment of silence, the woman suddenly said, "Do I not look like an expert?" The others were speechless. Chapter 106. Hearing the woman's words, Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. After not seeing her for a while, why did this mysterious sister become a little funny? Did she change people? Not far away, the ninth building master and Jianghu Tian looked at the black-robed old man with extremely strange expressions. Did this old man take too many fake pills? But on second thought, they were relieved. The Great Cloud Empire's Karaki Academy was really a top force in Qingzhou. In Jiang country, it was not a top force, but a transcendental force. In Jiang country, they could look up to the sky. Because they looked down on this small Jiang country from the bottom of their hearts. Even if the people in this place were strong, how strong could they be? But soon, the black-robed old man found that something was wrong. What was wrong? Because at this moment, he found that the ground was covered with corpses. And these corpses were all Dharma realm experts. Something was wrong. The black-robed old man frowned and turned to look at the youth brought by the plain-robed old man. The youth lowered his head slightly and did not dare to speak. How would he dare to speak? Just now, the plain-robed old man was killed by a sword. Seeing that the youth did not speak, the black-robed old man's expression immediately turned cold. Good for nothing. With that, he looked at the woman not far away and was about to speak. At this moment, a sword suddenly pressed against the black-robed old man's eyebrows without warning. The sword penetrated half an inch, and blood flowed out. The black-robed old man was stunned. The woman's voice rang out. "Don't say anything. Now, call for the strongest people. If they are too weak, there is no meaning in killing them. It's not fun." Everyone, the black-robed old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. "What are you, Chi?" The black-robed old man's right arm was suddenly cut off. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. The black-robed old man's face turned pale in an instant. Under the moonlight, the woman in the plain dress used her right hand to gently stroke her hair behind her ear. "You are too weak. I don't want to talk to you. Now, call for help. Call for help immediately." The black-robed old man stared at the woman in the plain dress. After a moment, he crushed a voice transmission stone. Really call for help. Of course he had to call for help. No matter who the person in front of him was, there was only one thing he could do now, and that was to get the person above to come out and talk to the woman in the plain dress. Of course, he knew that Ayumura Kuraki Academy could be considered to have failed this time. The person in front of them was so strong that it made them feel despair. At this time, the green sword suddenly turned around and arrived in front of Yi Xian, pointing straight at Yi Xian. Everyone was puzzled. Under the moonlight, the woman in the plain dress said coldly, "Tell me, where did you go wrong?" Wrong? Yi Xian was stunned. Then, he pondered for a moment. I made a mistake by getting into trouble. Pa. The green sword suddenly hit Yi Xian's arm. In an instant, Yi Xian's arm turned red. Yi Xian gritted his teeth in pain. The woman in a plain dress said coldly, "'Cause trouble? Was that wrong? Was that wrong? If I'm wrong, then you've provoked too little. Why bother me with such a trivial matter? What are you thinking? Can't you cause a bigger trouble?" Yi Xian, everyone, the woman in the plain dress said coldly, continue to think about where did you go wrong. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I'm weak, Pa." The green sword instantly hit Yi Xian's right arm. Yi Xian's entire body twitched, because the sword contained a trace of sharp sword qi. The sword qi entered his body, and it didn't just hit his arm, but his entire body and nerves. This was really King painful. In the air, the woman in the plain dress sneered. Weak? You know you're weak. But this isn't your fault. These people are bullying the weak, so it's normal that you can't fight them. Continue to think about where did you go wrong. Yi Xian was silent for a long time. Finally, he raised his head and looked at the woman in the plain dress. I'm not wrong. The woman in the plain dress didn't say anything. Yi Xian said fiercely, "These people captured my sister, so I want to kill them. They came to take revenge on me. Yes, I'm weak, I was beaten, and I admit it. But I'm not wrong. If I could do it again, I would still kill them. Yes, I'm weak, but I'll kill anyone who dares to bully my sister and friends." The woman spoke indifferently, "What if I can't?" Yi Xian said ferociously, "I will do it even if I can't do it. Even if I die standing, I won't kneel and suffer." The woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, "Release your sword intent." Yi Xian released his sword intent when he heard this. A short while later, the woman spoke softly, "There are many types of sword intent. Do you know what it is?" Yi Xian shook his head. The woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, "Your sword intent." At this point, she suddenly stopped. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the woman. She fell silent for a moment, and she was about to speak. However, the horizon in the distance suddenly trembled violently, and it didn't take long for a figure to appear within their fields of vision. The black-robed old man's expression instantly became slightly excited when he saw this figure. On the other hand, the 9th Pavilion Master and Jianghu Tian had solemn expressions on their faces. Solemn. Because the person who'd arrived might be an expert at the peak of the myriad techniques realm or above. The figure in the sky suddenly said, "Who are you?" The woman glanced indifferently at the figure. "What? You're the strongest in your academy?" The figure spoke indifferently. "Shouldn't you give us an explanation for killing so many students of my academy?" Right at this moment, the green sword in front of Yi Xian suddenly shot violently towards the sky. In the distance, the illusory figure suddenly raised his hands. In the next moment, he pressed forward lightly, and the space in front of him distorted into a strange shape. However, the green sword pierced through the space and arrived in front of the illusory figure. The figure was horrified, and he swiftly pressed his right hand forward. It was like a mountain was pressing down, and the force contained within his palm was probably capable of destroying half of the imperial capital. However, the green sword tore through that force with ease, and then it pierced through the figure's palm. In the end, it arrived at the center of the figure's forehead. Bang! The figure shook violently, and then he revealed his true form. It was an emaciated old man. The old man gazed at the woman with disbelief, and he was beyond shocked in his heart. This sword had already surpassed his understanding. The woman spoke indifferently. Explain? You want an explanation? My explanation is that I haven't had my fill of killing them, and I want to kill a few more. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly tapped downwards with her left hand. Hiss! A ray of light pierced through the center of the black-robed old man's forehead. The old man's figure crashed to the ground. The old man's pupils constricted slightly when he witnessed this scene, and he stared fixedly at the woman. Are you from the central continent? Meanwhile, a ray of light flashed. Hiss! The old man's entire right arm instantly flew into the air. Under the moonlight, the woman had her left hand behind her back while her right hand held a strand of beautiful hair by her ear. Cut the crap. Continue calling for reinforcements, and then allow me to kill in peace. The ninth floor master laughed bitterly. He was naturally aware of what had happened to Yi Xian on the Cloud Vessel and the Immortal Indulgence Pavilion all those years ago, and he knew about Dao Yi. He could imagine how helpless and despairing the third floor master and the others felt when they faced this woman. She's clearly saying that I'm stronger than you, and I intend to bully you until you die. The black-robed old man's expression was unsightly to the extreme. Call for reinforcements? Are you asking me to give my life away? I've failed. I've really failed. Not only have I failed, I've even suffered heavy losses. Right at this moment, the woman suddenly said, Where's that academy of yours? Where's the academy? The old man's expression instantly changed when he heard this. The woman spoke indifferently beneath the moonlight, Point me in a direction. Meanwhile, the ninth floor master hurriedly pointed to the right, Senior, it's over there. The woman nodded slightly. The old man was about to speak when the green sword suddenly pierced through the center of his forehead. Hiss! Blood sprayed. A moment later, the woman closed her eyes slowly, and then she pressed the fingers of her right hand together and pointed lightly towards the right. Go! A sword howl resounded through the sky. Under everyone's gaze, the green sword disappeared into the distant horizon along with the skinny old man's head. The sword carried the old man's head all the way. The distant Great Cloud Empire. The Great Cloud Empire was the largest empire in Pine Prefecture, and it occupied almost a third of the prefecture's territory. The territory it occupied was called the Great Cloud Territory. Besides the Great Cloud Empire, there were many other formidable powers and clans in the Great Cloud Territory, and Kuraki Academy was one of them. The Great Cloud Empire's Kuraki Academy could be said to be the strongest academy in Pine Prefecture. On this night, the tranquility of the Great Cloud Territory was suddenly broken by a sword light. The sword light pierced through the Great Cloud Territory like a shooting star and arrived at the imperial capital of the Great Cloud Empire. At this moment, the entire Great Cloud Empire was shocked. Countless experts raised their heads to look at the sword light, their eyes filled with shock. A sword immortal. A sword immortal. At this moment, almost all the experts in the Great Cloud Empire were seething with excitement. A real sword immortal. Under the gazes of countless people, the sword carried the old man's head to a tall mountain, and Kuraki Academy was located on this mountain. When the sword arrived, everyone in Kuraki Academy was shocked, and they looked up at it. Some of the experts of Kuraki Academy acted as if they were facing a formidable enemy, but none of them dared to stop it. In the end, the sword and the head were nailed to the top of the highest hall of Kuraki Academy. In an instant, the entire mountain shook violently as if an earthquake was happening. At this moment, a voice resounded in the sky above Kuraki Academy. If Kuraki Academy isn't satisfied, then feel free to seek revenge. I'm invincible, so do as you wish. Everyone was speechless. P.S. Yesterday, many readers said that I was deliberately keeping them in suspense. In fact, that's not the case. I just want to write every chapter well so that every chapter is meaningful, so that you will feel that the money you spent to read my book is worth it. That's all. Chapter 107. I am invincible, you can do as you wish. The entire Kuraki College was dead silent. Everyone was looking at the sword. They all recognized the head on the sword. It was the head of one of Kuraki Academy's guardian elders. In Kuraki College, his strength was definitely in the top 5. But at this moment, his head was nailed there. Kuraki College had offended a sword immortal. Not only were the Kuraki College students dumbfounded, but the entire Great Cloud Empire was also dumbfounded. Sword Immortal. This was the first time a sword immortal appeared in Jianghu, but it was because of Kuraki College. What did Kuraki College do? At this moment, countless people were undoubtedly very curious. Jianghu, country of Jianghu. Under the moonlight, the plain-dressed woman's dress looked even more spotless. Her back was still facing the crowd, so no one could see her face. The plain-dressed woman pointed to the far right side of the sky. That sword, you have half a year to get it back for me. If you can't, I will break your legs. With that, the plain-dressed woman disappeared under the moonlight. She left. Ninth floor master and Jiang Yuetian looked at each other, then at Yi Xian who was not far away. Yi Xian walked in front of the two and bowed deeply, thank you for tonight. If not for their help, they would have been long dead. As for the mysterious woman, she must have been alarmed when he forcefully activated the prison pagoda. Seeing Yi Xian express his gratitude so respectfully, ninth floor master felt very comfortable. The worst thing to do when helping others was to help an ingrate. Ninth floor master lightly patted Yi Xian's shoulder, young friend, the two of us should be the ones thanking you. With your master's help, the two of us will be able to reach the next level in half a year. To us, this is undoubtedly a grace of rebirth. If there were no other opportunities, they would not have been able to improve further. But now, with the mysterious woman's help, they could once again break through. To them, this was truly a grace of rebirth. Jiang Yuetian nodded and looked at Yi Xian. What do you plan to do next? If not, you can come to the palace to recuperate for a period of time. Since you and Little Ninth are friends, you will have a companion. Roping them in. The ninth floor master glanced at Jiang Yuetian and hurriedly said, you can come to my drunken immortal inn. If you're willing, I'm willing to bring you to the Central Plains. My drunken immortal inn will definitely treat you as an esteemed guest. Naturally, he also wanted to rope them in. This was not entirely because of the mysterious woman behind Yi Xian, but because Yi Xian himself was not bad. Furthermore, with a sword immortal nurturing him, how bad could he be in the future? Yi Xian was still young and would encounter difficulties. If he didn't help him now, he wouldn't have the chance to help him in the future. Yi Xian glanced at the two of them and shook his head. I appreciate the two seniors' kind intentions. Next, I want to rebuild Azure Billow Academy. Rebuild Sanglan Academy. Jiang Yuetian and the ninth floor head looked at each other. Both of them sighed softly and said nothing. At the side, Ji Anji glanced at Yi Xian, and tears flickered in his eyes. At this moment, the ninth floor head nodded, young friend, rebuilding Azure Billow Academy will definitely require a lot of things. If you need anything, feel free to come to the Drunken Immortal Inn and let me know. I will get people to help you to the best of my ability. Jiang Yuetian nodded as well. As for the manpower, I will get the people from the Ministry of Works to help. Hearing this, Yi Xian bowed deeply to the two of them once more. Many thanks. Jiang Yuetian smiled. It's just a small matter. Young friend, there's no need to stand on ceremony with us. You're treating us like outsiders. The ninth floor head nodded. Exactly, there's no need to stand on ceremony with us. Yi Xian nodded. Seniors, I still have many things to deal with, so I'll be taking my leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he cupped his fists towards the two of them, and then turned to look at Imo Yinchi and the others. Pack up the spoils, let's go. Spoils of war. There were more than 10 Dharma realm experts who died here, including several Dharma Pinnacle experts and one above Dharma Pinnacle expert. How could the spoils of these people be bad? Of course they wouldn't be bad. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Mo Yinchi and Bai Zhe walked to the side. Soon, everything on the ground was cleaned up by them. Jianghu Tian and the ninth floor head didn't say anything. Although they were a little jealous, they knew very well that these things should indeed belong to Yi Xian and the others. These people were killed by that mysterious woman. Soon, Yi Xian and the others disappeared from the sight of the ninth floor head and Jianghu Tian. The ninth floor head said softly, "This person is not impatient and is very loyal. We didn't help the wrong person this time." Jianghu Tian nodded. Kuraki Academy was really stupid not to accept him back then. And this old man Ji, sigh, the ninth floor head said softly, "I'm afraid this matter is not over yet." Jianghu Tian looked at the ninth floor head. The ninth floor head said solemnly, "The headquarters of Kuraki Academy is not in the Azure Province, but the Central Divine Continent. And the Dark World, their headquarters should also be in the Azure Province. This time, they suffered such a big loss, especially at the end. We don't know what that senior did. I reckon these two forces won't let this matter rest." Jianghu Tian said solemnly, "This is a sword immortal we're talking about. Will they really offend him?" The ninth floor head shook his head. "In our eyes, a sword immortal is undoubtedly an existence that we look up to, but in a place like the Central Divine Continent, a sword immortal. I'm afraid he can't be considered a top expert. A sword immortal can't make them bow down to him." Jianghu Tian said softly, "Let's wait and see if they will let this matter rest." The ninth floor head nodded. "Let's wait and see." Great Cloud Empire, Kuraki Academy. Kuraki Academy was located in the south of the imperial capital of Great Cloud Empire. The academy was built on a mountain range. The mountain range was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it. The mountain range was shrouded in mist all year round, making it look like a paradise. This mountain range was no ordinary mountain range. There was a spirit vein under the mountain range. Although Kuraki Academy was not the headquarters of Great Cloud Empire, it was the largest academy in the Azure Province. Among all the Kuraki academies in the Azure Province, Great Cloud Empire's Kuraki Academy could be said to be the leader. Tonight was undoubtedly a great humiliation for Great Cloud Empire's Kuraki Academy. A venerable protector of Kuraki Academy had been nailed to the Great Noble Hall of Kuraki Academy. The Great Noble Hall enshrined the deans and ancestors of Kuraki Academy. It could be said to be the most sacred place in Kuraki Academy. No one went to retrieve the sword. Firstly, they didn't dare to, and secondly, some people didn't even dare to approach the sword. The sword emitted a sharp sword energy that even a myriad Dharma realm expert wouldn't dare to approach recklessly. It was undoubtedly a sword immortal. Everyone knew that Kuraki Academy had offended a sword immortal. Inside a large hall, a middle-aged man sat in the upper part of the hall. He wore an ink-white robe and held a scroll in his left hand. He exuded a scholarly aura. This person was the dean of Kuraki Academy, Mu Qingxian. On both sides of the hall stood 8 or 9 people, both men and women. All of them were at the peak of the myriad Dharma realm. After an unknown period of time, Mu Qingxian suddenly closed the scroll in his hand and said softly, "It has been confirmed that the sword immortal came from the Azure Province, and several people from our previous academy went to the Azure Province. Their goal was to kill a young man named Yi Xian in order to obtain the reward of Kuraki Academy in the state of Jianghu. Unfortunately, our state of Jianghu not only lost a genius, but also several myriad Dharma realm experts. Now, even a venerable protector has been killed. According to the scouts, 2 myriad Dharma realm assassins from the Dark World also went there. Both of them are dead. In addition, there are also some experts from other forces. A total of 16 people have fallen. With such strength, he is undoubtedly a sword immortal." With that, he glanced at the people in the hall. "What do you think?" There was silence in the hall. A sword immortal. That wasn't something that Kuraki Academy could afford to offend. They had to suffer this loss. Even though it was slightly embarrassing, it was undoubtedly the wisest decision. Right at this moment, an old man stood out. It's fine if he only killed. We deserve to offend a sword immortal. However, this person nailed his sword to the top of my Kuraki Academy's righteous hall. This is an insult to my Kuraki Academy, and my Kuraki Academy will become the laughingstock of the entire Qingzhou province. My Kuraki Academy's students will not be able to raise their heads in front of outsiders. When he spoke up to here, he shook his head slightly. We can't just let this matter go. We can't just let it go. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere here instantly became slightly heavy. If we can't just let it go, then does that mean we have to continue fighting? Fight a sword immortal? How? With what? Right at this moment, Mu Qingxian suddenly raised his head and looked towards the entrance of the hall. A shadow had suddenly appeared there. There was only a shadow and no one there. The expressions of everyone here changed slightly when they witnessed this scene. Because they actually hadn't noticed when the shadow had appeared. Mu Xianqing spoke indifferently. I never expected that the Master of the Dark Dimension would grace us with her presence. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. The Master of the Dark Dimension. The expressions of everyone here changed when they heard this. The Master of the Dark Dimension was absolutely a name that struck terror in the hearts of everyone in Great Cloud Realm. The leader of the #1 assassin organization in Azure Prefecture. Or it should be said that it was the one and only assassin organization in Azure Prefecture. Meanwhile, a hoarse voice suddenly resounded, Sect Master Mu, are we joining forces this time? Joining forces. Mu Xuanqing's eyes narrowed slightly. What gives you the confidence? The Master of the Dark Dimension said, it's just a sword immortal. It isn't difficult to kill him if we join forces. Mu Xianqing shook his head, you can't kill him. Even if we join forces, we still won't be able to kill him. The Master of the Dark Dimension suddenly said, someone from the Central Divine Prefecture is rushing over. Mu Xianqing frowned slightly, your Dark Dimension really dares to stake everything on this? What's your objective? Just for the sake of revenge? The Master of the Dark Dimension spoke indifferently, a sword immortal has definitely cultivated to the Golden Core realm. If we kill him, it would be equivalent to hundreds of years of bitter cultivation, right? Mu Xianqing spoke indifferently, what's the price? The Master of the Dark Dimension laughed coldly, isn't it true that riches are sought amidst danger? Mu Xianqing fell silent. Meanwhile, the Master of the Dark Dimension spoke again, it's an injured sword immortal. Mu Xuanqing's eyes narrowed slightly, why do you say that? The Master of the Dark Dimension spoke indifferently, if he wasn't injured, he would have come here a long time ago. Moreover, why would he appear in the Azure Prefecture? If it wasn't for some special reason, it would be utterly impossible for him to appear in the Azure Prefecture. So, he's definitely injured. Mu Xianqing spoke in a low voice, that's just your guess. The Master of the Dark Dimension laughed coldly, that attack of hers didn't just nail a guardian of your Kuraki Academy to death, but the reputation of your Kuraki Academy that has existed for 1,000 years. If he doesn't die, then the students of your Kuraki Academy will never be able to hold their heads up high. Mu Xianqing slowly clenched his right fist when he heard this. After a short moment, Mu Xianqing suddenly stood up, send my orders to the headquarters to kill a sword immortal. Kill a sword immortal. Chapter 108. Qing Prefecture, State of Jianghu. Sanglan Academy. Sanglan Academy was in ruins. Not only had the original hall of Sanglan been destroyed, but even half of Mount Sanglan had been destroyed. Yi Xian led Mo Yunqi and the others to the ruins. Yi Xian walked into the ruins and searched. It didn't take long for him to find something. A wine gourd. Old Man Ji's wine gourd. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai's eyes instantly moistened when they saw the wine gourd. Ji Anji lowered his head slightly and clenched his fists tightly. Yi Xian held the wine gourd tightly, and a short moment later, he hung it on his waist. After that, he gazed at the ruins in front of him, fell silent for a moment, and then knelt down. He knelt. Besides kneeling for his younger sister, Yi Xian had never knelt to anyone in his entire life. He'd first come to Zhanglan Academy because old man Ji had saved his younger sister, but he'd truly fallen in love with this place later on. There was no scheming and no life and death here. He'd experienced warmth that he hadn't even experienced in the Yi family in Qingcheng. Meanwhile, Mo Yunqi and the others walked over to Yi Xian's side and slowly knelt down. They bowed deeply 3 times to the ruins in front of them. Yi Xian held the wine gourd tightly, and his eyes were filled with determination. Old man Ji, I'll take good care of them, and I'll bring back the students from the Shao Dao and Song Mountain. In the future, I'll take them to the Central Divine Prefecture's General Institute to fulfill your final wish. As soon as he finished speaking, he stood up. Right at this moment, an unexpected change suddenly occurred. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically without any warning, and he instantly fell to the ground. At the same time, his body twitched incessantly as if he was having an epileptic fit. Seeing this scene, the expressions of Mo Yunqi and the other 2 changed greatly. The 3 of them hurriedly surrounded Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian's facial features were already twisted together, and he was completely deformed. The 3 of them were horrified when they saw this. Jianghu hurriedly said, "I'll get a doctor." She turned around and was about to leave when Yi Xian suddenly pulled her back. Yi Xian said with a trembling voice, No need, I will be affected by the backlash, you guys guard me, wait for a while." Ah. Backlash. The mysterious woman had warned him not to rashly activate the World Prison Pagoda, but he had already activated it. The moment he activated it, he was already prepared to die. Not only that, but every time the mysterious woman attacked, it could be said to be an extremely great burden to the World Prison Tower. In the end, this burden would be borne by him, the owner of the World Prison Tower. Since there was no backlash earlier, it was obvious that the mysterious woman had forcefully suppressed it. Right now, he felt as if his entire body was being torn apart. This kind of tearing pain was truly unbearable. Activating the World Prison Pagoda, coupled with the mysterious woman's attack, these 2 backlashes added together, even he couldn't stand it anymore. On the ground, Yi Xian's entire body twitched ceaselessly. Not only that, his entire body seemed as if it had suffered a heavy blow, and it was covered in cracks as if it would shatter at any moment. It was truly terrifying. Seeing Yi Xian's current state, Mo Yunqi and the other 2's faces were filled with shock. The 3 of them were currently at a loss. Yi Xian curled up into a ball, and his body was still twitching ceaselessly. At this time, how much he wished that he would faint. But he knew that he couldn't faint. If he fainted now, he might really never wake up again. He couldn't die. He still had to find his sister, he still had to find Anlanxiu, he still had to rebuild Zhanglan Academy, he still had, endure. He had to endure. Yi Xian's arms were crossed, and his entire body twitched violently on the ground. At the side, Mo Yunqi suddenly sat paralyzed on the ground. Looking at Yi Xian on the ground, Mo Yunqi's tears suddenly flowed down. He wiped the tears off his face. "I'm really F***king weak, F***king, I'm just an idiot, a useless idiot." Bai Zai's fists were tightly clenched, and his face was expressionless. His body was trembling. At the side, Jianghu looked at Yi Xian. She was expressionless, but in her eyes, tears kept flowing. Now, there were only 4 of them left in Zhanglan Academy. If anything happened to Yi Xian, after an unknown period of time, the sky had already turned white. The sky was bright. At this time, Yi Xian's body gradually calmed down. Mo Yunqi and the other 2 had been guarding, and the 3 of them did not leave even a step. At noon, Yi Xian's fingers moved slightly. Seeing this scene, Jianghu hurriedly walked to Yi Xian's side. She grabbed Yi Xian's arm, and softly said, "Ru, how is it?" Yi Xian slowly stood up, and he slowly opened his eyes. The next moment, his body stiffened. "Is the sky not bright yet?" Hearing this, Jianghu's body trembled slightly. She looked at Yi Xian's eyes, and at this moment, Yi Xian's eyes were actually empty. It was completely empty. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were also stunned. Yi Xian rubbed his eyes, and then he fell silent. It was not that the sky was not bright, but he was blind. At this time, the mysterious woman's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Your physical body is strong enough to withstand the backlash of this pagoda, but your eyes are the weakest part of your body, and your eyes are not able to withstand the power of this pagoda's backlash. The reason why I did not make a move was because if I did, would have to suppress this pagoda, and if I forcibly suppressed it, the seal of this pagoda would probably shatter in an instant. Not only would the seal shatter, the power of this pagoda might also instinctively resist me. If that happened, the first to die would be you. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he grinned. It's nothing. The mysterious woman said again, even if your eyeballs are gone, you still have a sword. In the future, use the sword as your eyes, and use swordsmen to cultivate a pair of sword eyes. Sword eyes? Yi Xian was stunned, and asked in his heart, what do you mean? The mysterious woman spoke indifferently, you've always used the sword as your body, so it's very normal for you to cultivate a pair of sword eyes. Use your heart as a sword, and the sword as your eyes. Simply speaking, in the future, you won't use your eyes to look at the world, but your heart. Only when you look at the world with your heart will you be able to see its essence. Of course, you haven't come into contact with that level yet, but you can start moving towards that level. Moreover, the sword eyes are sword eyes, so in the future, your eyes will be able to kill as well. Of course, the precondition is that you're able to cultivate it. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, you still need to ask me. The mysterious woman said, it might be very painful. Possible. Yi Xian laughed bitterly. What the mysterious woman said was possible. Then it wasn't possible, and it should be extremely painful. Yi Xian shook his head, Senior, do you think that I'm afraid of pain? The mysterious woman fell silent for a moment, and then she said, I'll pass down a cultivation technique to you later, and you can cultivate according to it. Moreover, it will affect your image if you don't have eyes. In the future, once you're accomplished in your cultivation, you can go look for a pair of eyes that can endure your sword, like a true dragon or spirit phoenix. They're pretty as well. In any case, you can look for them yourself in the future. True dragon or spirit phoenix. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Aren't they divine beasts of the heavens and the earth of legend? Look for their eyes. Go and die. Meanwhile, the mysterious woman said, there's one more thing. You have to find a second Tao law, and perfecting this pagoda with a Tao law will mean that it'll be much easier for me. Moreover, you have to work hard to improve your own strength as well. Remember, your enemies aren't just outside, but inside as well. Yi Xian nodded, understood. The mysterious woman said, I need to rest. Don't disturb me if there's nothing important, and don't activate this pagoda at will either. This pagoda isn't something that you can activate right now. Once you do, those things that are suppressed by this pagoda will be extremely happy. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, Senior, are you all right? The mysterious woman said indifferently, worry more about yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, a lot of information suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's mind. A lot. Soul-setting sword. Sword eye technique. A cultivation method and a sword technique. After a while, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Actually, he was still very lucky. With the mysterious woman's help, he had taken many fewer detours than others. In terms of cultivation methods and sword techniques, he didn't feel any pressure. Unfortunately, every time the mysterious woman made a move, he would end up in a miserable state. Now, he really didn't dare to let the mysterious woman make a move. He was blind this time, but who knew what would happen next time? Moreover, he could clearly feel that there were many dangerous existences in this prison pagoda. This was the feeling that the prison pagoda gave him. If the mysterious woman made a move 2 more times, the Tao laws in this pagoda would probably shatter before it could gather qi. At that time, the first person to die would be him. The mysterious woman's move was a good thing for him, but it was actually a huge hidden danger. Moreover, he didn't want to test the mysterious woman. He knew that if he had the slightest reliance, the mysterious woman would definitely be the first to give up on him. Previously, if he didn't want to use his life to activate this prison pagoda, the mysterious woman might really not make a move. He wasn't anyone to the mysterious woman, so he really didn't have the qualifications to let her help him. He still had to rely on himself. His own strength was the way of the king. At this moment, the spirit elegant sword in Yi Xian's body suddenly trembled slightly, as though it was expressing something. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the spirit elegant sword appeared in his palm. Although he couldn't see the spirit elegant sword, he could feel it. Holding the spirit elegant sword, Yi Xian's lips curled up slightly. From now on, you are my eyes. At this moment, Mo Yinchi suddenly walked in front of Yi Xian. He glanced at Yi Xian. Bandit Yi Xian shook his head. You don't have to comfort me. I'm fine. Mo Yinchi and the other two were silent. Yi Xian said softly, now, only the four of us are left in Sanglan Academy. As for me, I want to rebuild Sanglan Academy. I want it to become the strongest academy in the Azure province. No, I want Sanglan Academy to become the best academy in the Azure firmament world. As he spoke, he turned to face the ruins. Elder Ji, watch from the heavens. I, Yi Xian, will do what I say. I want the headquarters of Sanglan Academy in the Divine Central Continent to know that if they look down on us today, in the future, Yi Xian will make it so that they can't hope to reach up to us. As he spoke, he pointed at Jianghu and Baizhe. The two of you need to reach the Nether Passage realm as soon as possible. Baizhe and Jianghu nodded. Yi Xian said again, choose. Baizhe looked at the treasures in front of him. In the end, he chose a pair of black bracers. The gauntlet was completely black and made of unknown material. There were even some beast markings around the gauntlet. This pair of arm guards was also a low-grade bright rank. Baizhe put on the gauntlet with both hands. In an instant, the gauntlet suddenly shrank, and in the next moment, the beast markings around the gauntlet actually wriggled as if they were about to come to life. Baizhe looked at Yi Xian and the other two and said with some excitement, there is beast soul energy inside. With this gauntlet, my strength should be able to increase by about 40%. As he spoke, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Yi Xian, bandit, you also cultivate your physical body, this gauntlet is also for you. Yi Xian shook his head, there is no difference whether you use it or I use it. Baizhe glanced at Yi Xian and did not say anything, but a trace of warmth flowed through his heart. In fact, the four of them had long become one. It was the same no matter who used it. Yi Xian looked at Jianghu, and Jianghu glanced at the treasures in front of her. After a moment, she shook her head, there is no need. Yi Xian nodded, I will find a good saber for you in the future. As he finished speaking, he kept all the treasures. Then, he faced Mo Yunqi and the other two. From now on, Anji will be in charge of supervising the construction of Sanglan Academy. Baizhe will be in charge of exploring the depths of the mountains and finding some places suitable for cultivation. After that, we will plan to build some cultivation places. Are we recruiting? Mo Yunqi suddenly asked. Yi Xian nodded, we are recruiting. An academy naturally had to have students. However, we will not recruit randomly. We will have to go through strict selection. These will be discussed later. For now, let's first build Sanglan Academy. As he spoke, he faced Mo Yunqi, old Mo, your skin is thicker. Go down the mountain and spread the news. Just say that Sanglan Academy is recruiting. Also, go and find out which scholars are there in the imperial capital, those who have great knowledge. In the future, our Sanglan Academy will not only focus on cultivation. An academy is an academy. Naturally, books must be read. Mo Yinchi hesitated, then said, "Read?" Yi Xian nodded. "Not only must we cultivate the students' strength, we must also cultivate their qualities and improve their thinking. I don't want the future students of our academy to be mercenaries." Mo Yinchi quickly nodded. Right, don't be like those bastards from Karaki Academy. Each and every one of them is shameless." Yi Xian nodded, then he faced Jianghu. "First, let people build a morning hall." Chapter 110. Karaki Academy. In the entire imperial capital, Karaki Academy was in the most awkward position. Li Xuanzang's death had practically caused Karaki Academy to be without a leader. As for how exactly Li Xuanzang died, they had no idea. After all, Jianghu Tian and the 9th floor master wouldn't tell Karaki Academy about this. Yi Xian's group of 4 headed straight for Karaki Academy, and countless people watched them along the way. Who in the imperial capital didn't know Yi Xian's group of 4? Yi Xian's group of 4 could be said to be even more famous than Enlancio from all those years ago. Seeing that the 4 of them were heading towards Karaki Academy, countless people followed them along the way. More and more people followed them. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's group of 4 and a large group of people to arrive at the foot of Tsang Mountain. Yi Xian raised his head to face Tsang Mountain. In the next moment, a sword suddenly soared into the sky and circled in the sky. At the same time, a voice suddenly resounded from Tsang Mountain. "Karaki Academy, does anyone want to fight? Does anyone want to fight?" Countless people raised their heads to look at Tsang Mountain. No one replied. Boos rang out from the crowd. Suddenly, an old man appeared not too far away from Yi Xian's group of 4. It was the vice dean of Karaki Academy, Mo Song. A divine combination realm expert. Mo Song stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Why go too far? You." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and instantly arrived before Mo Song. In the next moment, he suddenly slashed the spirit elegant sword with both hands. A single strike to decide life and death. Not only did this strike contain powerful sword force, but it also contained sword intent. Mo Song's expression changed drastically when he saw Yi Xian's sudden attack. He stomped his right foot behind him, folded his hands together, and then pushed forward forcefully. Bang! A powerful force surged out from his palms. Bang! Under the gazes of countless people, Mo Song's entire body was directly sent flying. This time, he was sent flying more than 100 feet. Everyone was dumbfounded. Mo Song was a divine combination realm expert. He was sent flying just like that. In the distance, Mo Song glanced at his broken arms. Then, he lifted his head to look at Yi Xian in the distance and said in shock, "Master Kendo." Suddenly, a sword flashed. Chi! Mo Song's head instantly flew off. Blood gushed out like a fountain. Everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. Everyone was looking at Yi Xian. Kendo Grandmaster? Such a young sword Dao Grandmaster? Yi Xian opened his palm and the spirit elegant sword returned to his palm. Yi Xian held his sword and walked towards Tsang Shan. Mo Yinchi and the other 2 followed closely behind. Under the gazes of countless people, Yi Xian and the others entered the Shao Dao of the Tsang Mountains. Beside the Shao Dao, there was a corpse. It was a corpse that had been nailed to the ground. The original appearance of the corpse could no longer be seen clearly. His limbs had been nailed to the ground. It was a miserable sight. Tears flowed from Jianghu's eyes as he gazed at the corpse. Mo Yinchi and Bai Zhe were about to remove the corpse when Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm going to make the students of Tsang Lan Academy kneel and send them back to Tsang Lan Academy." As soon as he finished speaking, he walked swiftly up the mountain. Mo Yinchi, Bai Zhe, and Jianghu followed closely behind him. As for the others at the foot of the mountain, they hesitated for a moment before they hurriedly followed. At this moment, They weren't afraid of Jianghu Academy because the entire Jiang country and the Immortal indulgence in were targeting Jianghu Academy. At this moment, Jianghu Academy could be said to be hated by everyone. It didn't take long for Yi Xian's group to arrive at the top of Jiang Mountain. There was a hall before Yi Xian's group of 4, and over 100 people were standing before the hall. All of them were students of Jianghu Academy. The person in the lead was none other than the other vice dean of Jianghu Academy, Kumu. Kumu had been heavily injured by Old Man Ji, but he hadn't died. Even though he hadn't died, he'd been heavily injured, and he still hadn't recovered. Kumu's expression was extremely unsightly when he saw Yi Xian. He's here again. He's here again. The last time Yi Xian had come to Jianghu Academy, not only had he killed Fenju, but he'd also killed over a dozen of Jianghu Academy students. And now, he'd come again. Yi Xian looked at Kumu and the others who stood nearby. Please send my Jianghu Academy students to Jianghu Academy. Remember, send them to Jianghu Academy on their knees. Hearing this, the expressions of the Jianghu Academy students instantly turned sinister. Kneel? That's an insult. Kumu said in a sinister voice, Yi Xian, since you want to fight to the death, then we'll fight? Yi Xian suddenly interrupted Kumu, since you want to fight, then let's fight. As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body charged forward. Behind Yi Xian, the corners of Mo Yinqi's mouth curled into a sinister smile. Then let's fight. I fucking wanted to fuck all of you bastards to death since a long time ago. As soon as he finished speaking, his black shoes suddenly trembled slightly, and then his figure transformed into an afterimage that vanished on the spot. He was so swift that many in the surroundings couldn't even see him clearly. At the same time that Mo Yinqi charged forward, Bai Zai and Ji Anji had charged forward as well. This time, they hadn't come here to negotiate, they'd come here to fight. Jianghu Academy was primarily responsible for Old Man Ji's death. So, how could they not fucking avenge him? Yi Xian's target was Kumu. As for the students of Karaki Academy, they were completely suppressed by the black-clothed men. In fact, even if Yi Xian's group of 4 hadn't come to take revenge, the Jiang country's imperial household and the Immortal indulgence in wouldn't have let Karaki Academy off. If they didn't eliminate Karaki Academy now, wouldn't they just be waiting for revenge in the future? Opposite Yi Xian, Kumu stared at Yi Xian. Good, Yi Xian. I never thought that my Karaki Academy would perish in your hands. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already above Kumu. A sword slashed down. Bang! Kumu was sent flying dozens of meters away. As soon as he came to a stop, the ground beneath his feet shattered. Not only that, but blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and instantly dyed the clothes on his chest red. Kumu was shocked to the extreme. He raised his head to look at Yi Xian. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly shouted angrily, don't fucking talk nonsense with me. I just want to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward. Although he couldn't see, he could still sense it. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't see, his combat strength would have increased by at least 20% to 30%. Being unable to see would affect him to a certain extent. When he saw Yi Xian charge over again, a savage smile appeared on the corners of Kumu's mouth, then come. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Yi Xian as well. A powerful aura surged out from his body, and it was so strong that it surpassed the aura of an ordinary divine combination realm expert. He was detonating himself. Kumu was very clearly aware that it was utterly impossible for him to be a match for Yi Xian in his current state. So, instead of allowing Yi Xian to kill him, it was better to take him down with him. However, Yi Xian didn't stop, and his sword suddenly struggled free from Kumu's grasp and slashed forward. The savage smile on the corners of Kumu's mouth gradually grew wider. Bang! A world-shaking explosion suddenly resounded, and then a powerful wave of energy surged out from the surroundings. Moreover, a figure was blasted flying incessantly amidst this powerful wave of energy. It was Yi Xian. He flew for almost 300 m before smashing against a mountain wall in the end. Everyone here stopped moving and gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian crawled up slowly from beneath the mountain wall, and then he wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and gazed at Imo Yinchi and the others. Kill. Kill them all. Kill. Kill them all. Chapter 111. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Imo Yinchi and the other two immediately charged out. Kill. He, Yi Xian, was never a soft-hearted person. Since the two academies had already reached a point where they could no longer fight to the death, why not kill each other? Kuraki Academy had never been merciful to their Tsanglan Academy. Kill. Yi Xian himself also charged out. His speed was very fast, but his sword was even faster. Just as he charged out, his sword was already flying towards a Divine Combination Realm expert from Kuraki Academy. The Divine Combination Realm expert who was fighting with Imo Yinchi had a huge change in expression. He suddenly turned around and the sword arrived. Boom! The Divine Combination Realm expert was directly sent flying. At this moment, the exquisite spirit sword was about to fly out. However, a flying dagger was even faster. The moment that Divine Fusion Realm expert was about to fly out, a flying dagger pierced through his throat. Chi! The Divine Combination Realm expert's head instantly flew out, blood spurting out like a fountain. Imo Yinchi glanced at Yi Xian who was not far away and said indifferently, "Snatch ahead." Yi Xian wielded the sword in his right hand and swung it to the side. 100 feet away, Chi! Another Divine Combination Realm expert's head instantly flew out. Instant kill. It was a direct instant kill. Seeing this scene, some of the Kuraki Academy students were instantly shocked to the extreme. However, no one chose to surrender. If they surrendered now, they would only be humiliating themselves. Fight. Both sides no longer had a path of retreat. As for those Divine Combination Realm experts, apart from Yi Xian, it would be difficult for Imo Yinchi and the other two to kill them in a one-on-one battle. But now, there were 4 teams of 4. The 4 of them easily crushed them. After all the Divine Combination Realm experts of Kuraki Academy were killed, what followed was a massacre. A true massacre. In front of the education hall, the heads of Kuraki Academy students continuously flew. The surrounding spectators were horrified. Some of them did not even dare to continue watching as they turned and fled down the mountain. It was too bloody. This day was the doomsday of Kuraki Academy. Soon, only a dozen Kuraki Academy students were left in the field. This was left behind by Yi Xian on purpose. The 10 of them huddled closely together. Their clothes had long been dyed red with blood. Yi Xian walked in front of the 10 people. "Do you want to live?" One of the Kuraki Academy students grinned and said, "Live? Even if we die standing, we won't." Chi! A sword pierced through the head of the student who spoke, causing blood to spurt out. Seeing this scene, the remaining students couldn't help but take a few steps back. Yi Xian pointed at a Kuraki Academy student. "Do you want to live?" The student gulped and struggled a little. At this moment, a sword flew towards him. Chi! "How about this? Brother Jiang and I will split 30%, and your Tsanglan Academy will split 40%. Young friend, don't refuse. If not for your master killing Li Xuanzang, we wouldn't have been able to annihilate Kuraki Academy. At the end of the day, we're the ones who benefited." Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded. "Then I won't stand on ceremony." The 9th floor master laughed. "We're all on the same side. What's there to stand on ceremony for? Split the spoils." Kuraki Academy had accumulated its wealth for so many years, so it definitely had a lot of treasures. Imo Yinchi and the others shuddered with fear when they plundered Kuraki Academy's treasury. Among the treasures, there were actually 49 supreme-grade spirit artifacts, 6 bright-rank spirit artifacts, and one of them was actually a mid-grade bright-rank spirit artifact. Besides that, there were a total of 10 million spirit stones, cultivation techniques, martial techniques, and other miscellaneous items that were innumerable. This wasn't just getting rich, it was getting rich overnight. To the three parties, it was truly an overnight fortune. Jianghu was grinning from ear to ear. What the country of Jiang lacked the most now was wealth, and with this wealth, the country of Jiang's treasury would be sufficient for the next 10 years. The ninth floor master was quite excited as well. To him, these treasures entering the drunken immortal inn was a political achievement. His goal wasn't always the country of Jiang or Azure Prefecture, but the divine central continent. He didn't have any hope in the past, but now he had a great chance. Yi Xian and the others were naturally excited as well. With so many things, rebuilding Sanglan Academy would be much easier. Now that Sanglan Academy was rebuilt, what they lacked the most were spirit stones, martial techniques, cultivation techniques, and spirit artifacts. One had to know that students needed resources to cultivate. With these resources, when they first recruited students, they would have something to learn, and they would be able to tide over the most difficult period of the early stages. This time, he was serious about rebuilding Sanglan Academy. Soon, the three parties divided the treasures cleanly. On Yi Xian's side, there were 2 bright-rank spirit artifacts, 16 supreme-grade spirit artifacts, 3 earth-grade martial techniques, 3 earth-grade cultivation techniques. Apart from these, there were more than 3 million supreme-grade spirit stones, more than 30 jade-grade spirit stones, and various other items. Seeing these items, Mo Yunqi and Bai Zai's eyes widened. So many treasures. They had really struck it rich. However, these treasures were stored in the first floor of the prison pagoda by Yi Xian. The first floor of the prison pagoda was still spacious enough. After storing the items, Yi Xian turned to the 9th floor master and Jianghu Tian, "Seniors, we will take our leave first." The 9th floor master nodded, "Young friend, the drunken immortal and has accepted the items you gave me previously. The money will be sent soon, and I will send them to Sanglan Academy." Yi Xian cupped his fists, "Then I'll have to trouble you." With that, he turned and left. Mo Yunqi and the others followed. Watching Yi Xian and the others leave, the 9th floor master smiled and withdrew his gaze. "We've earned quite a lot this time." Jianghu Tian nodded. This time, the country of Zhang's imperial family had really earned a lot. It could be said that with these treasures, the country of Zhang's overall national strength would increase greatly. A win-win situation for all three parties. Jianghu Tian and the 9th floor master looked at each other, then both of them burst into laughter. Sanglan Academy. When Yi Xian and the others returned to MTG Yunshan, the Kuraki Academy students also sent the corpses of the Sanglan Academy students to the peak of MTG Yunshan. In front of Yi Xian and the others were more than 36 corpses. Each corpse was extremely miserable. One could imagine how they were treated in the Kuraki Academy. On the side were the group of Kuraki Academy students. Without Yi Xian's permission, they naturally didn't dare to move. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Let's go." The students immediately rushed down the mountain as if they had been granted amnesty. Yi Xian led Mo Yunqi and the others to the corpses. Looking at the corpses, Ji Anji's tears flowed again. These few days were the times she cried the most in her life. Yi Xian and the others bowed deeply to the corpses in front of them. Yi Xian said softly, "You can all rest in peace." Saying so, he turned to Bai Zai, "Bury them well, then erect a tombstone and carve their names on it. Let our Sanglan Academy students remember them in the future. They died for the academy. Other than that, try to contact their relatives and try to compensate them as much as possible." Mo Yunqi nodded, "I will handle the matter of contacting their relatives." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Other than that, there is one more thing. Although the Kuraki Academy has been destroyed, it is still a branch. Hence, our crisis has not been resolved. I and all of you need to improve your strength. I won't force you. If you want to slack off, it's fine. If you die in the future, I will definitely give you a grand burial and make your funeral grand. Saying so, he turned and left. Mo Yunqi and the others, Yi Xian, came to a bamboo forest in the back of the mountain. He sat cross-legged and placed his right hand where his eyes were, sword eye. His top priority now was to cultivate the sword eye. Chapter 112. Eye of the Sword. Yi Xian naturally had to cultivate the eye of the sword first. Because he did not have both eyes now, his battle power was still reduced. Yi Xian slowly analyzed the eye of the sword cultivation method that the mysterious woman had given him. The more he analyzed, the more shocked he became, because this cultivation method was a little unbelievable and complicated. Eye of the sword. Using the sword as the eye. To use the sword as the eye, one must first use the heart as the sword. Heart. This was the key point of the eye of the sword. Only by using the heart as the sword could one condense sword intent and use the sword as the eye. When that happened, it was equivalent to using the heart to see the world. The sword was just a medium. Although it was called the eye of the sword, it was more appropriate to call it the eye of the heart. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. Beside him, the elegant spirit's sword floated quietly. And around him, a surge of sword intent quietly condensed. Sword intent. Yi Xian did not know what kind of sword intent his sword intent was. Back then, the mysterious woman ran away before she finished speaking. But to him, any kind of sword intent was not important. What was important was that it could enhance his battle power. According to the cultivation method that the mysterious woman had given him, Yi Xian began to slowly circulate it. Soon, his body emitted a faint sword glow. This cultivation method only had 3 key points. Listen. Feel. Think. Yi Xian listened attentively. The sound of the wind. He heard the sound of the wind. It was very soft. Gradually, he heard the rustling of the leaves in the surrounding bamboo forest. At this moment, the sword intent around him suddenly spread out. The sword intent followed his thoughts to the bamboo leaves. When the sword intent appeared on the bamboo leaves, he could clearly feel all the details of the bamboo leaves. That feeling was as if he was seeing it with his own eyes. It was a very strange feeling. Yi Xian was a little excited. To him, this was a completely new discovery. Soon, Yi Xian's sword intent spread towards the ground below. Soon, he could feel the earth, the gravel, the smell of the soil, the water. He could feel more and more clearly. It was even clearer than seeing it with his own eyes. This feeling was really strange. Yi Xian was immersed in it. Soon, his sword intent spread out in all directions. However, it couldn't spread too far. When the sword intent reached a distance of 10 feet away from him, he seemed a little tired. He could use his sword insight to clearly sense everything within 30 m, but this was too troublesome. Because he wanted to clearly sense everything in his surroundings, he had to release his sword intent. In this way, the sword intent would be too scattered, and its might would be greatly reduced. What he needed to do was to cultivate the sword eye. At that time, he wouldn't have to go through so much trouble, and he would be able to achieve such an effect. With that in mind, Yi Xian withdrew his sword intent. Compressed sword will. Yi Xian began to crazily compress these sword intents. Before long, the sword intents inside and around his body were being compressed layer by layer. At this moment, his body felt like it was being cut by countless blades. The pain was unbearable. Yi Xian almost wailed out, but he forcefully endured it. If such a small ordeal could be called a man, could he still be called a man? He, Yi Xian, would never scream, even if he was beaten to death. At this moment, Yi Xian's body trembled violently. Then, the entire bamboo forest resounded with his screams, chi 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 chi. Around Yi Xian, the sword intents were like streaks of electricity, constantly gathering towards his eyes. Not only were their sword intense, but there were also streaks of sword radiance. When the sword radiance and sword intense gathered towards his eyes, the pain was truly unbearable. For a moment, he even wanted to give up. But now, he couldn't even give up even if he wanted to. Gradually, countless sword intense and sword radiance gathered in his eye sockets. These were all compressed sword intense and sword radiance. And his entire face actually had countless streaks of blood, incomparably terrifying. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the pain he was enduring was. While Yi Xian was cultivating, Mo Yinshi and the other two were also cultivating crazily. Although they had won the battle at Karaki Academy, the four of them did not forget one thing. However, the four of them did not forget that Elder Ji had died in order to protect them. What was helplessness? What was despair? The moment they saw old Ji's death, they deeply experienced it. Whether it was Mo Yinshi, Bai Zai, or Ji Anji, none of them wanted to experience such helplessness and despair. Now, only the four of them were left in Songlan Academy, and Yi Xian was even suffering from the backlash, causing him to lose his sight. When the three of them thought of this, the pressure was even greater. Cultivating. Even Mo Yinshi, who loved to slack off, was currently cultivating crazily. His entire body was covered with small metal balls, and every day, before dawn, he would start running into the mountains. And when he returned, his entire body was already drenched. Not only that, his legs were also trembling. However, the next day, before dawn, he would go out again. Bai Zai was no longer cultivating under the waterfall. Instead, he continuously used his body to hit the mountain walls every day. He was not quite the same as ordinary people. The more his body was stimulated, the stronger his body would be, and the higher the possibility of the power of the demon clan in his body being stimulated. However, this process was extremely painful. Every time he hit the mountain wall, the flesh on his body would split open. He pointed it at Mo Yinshi. Mo Yinshi, come, let's practice our swordplay. As soon as he finished speaking, he dashed out. Seeing that Yi Xian was serious, Mo Yinshi's expression immediately changed. He dodged backward and pulled several meters away from Yi Xian. Bandit Yi, why are you acting like a drunkard? You. Mo Yinshi's voice stopped abruptly because the spirit grace sword in Yi Xian's hand was already slashing towards him. Mo Yinshi was shocked and continuously dodged backward. However, Yi Xian's sword was as fast as lightning as it chased after him. Mo Yinshi scolded as he ran, Bandit Yi, why are you acting like a drunkard? Hurry up and stop, or I'll beat you up. Yi Xian did not stop at all and continued to chase after Mo Yinshi. Just like that, the two of them sprinted all the way. Soon, Mo Yinshi reached where Bai Zai was. Bai Zai was lying on the ground, panting heavily. When he saw Yi Xian chasing after Mo Yinshi, he was dumbfounded. Mo Yinshi, how did you provoke him? Mo Yinshi glared at Bai Zai. Provoke him? This guy is drunk. He slashed me the moment he saw me. With that, he suddenly dodged sideways and a sword gleam flashed past. Chi! The sword landed steadily a few inches in front of Bai Zai. Bai Zai gulped and then crawled back a little. His body was strong, but Yi Xian's sword was very sharp. Most importantly, it was a mid-grade light-rank sword. At this moment, Yi Xian trembled as he walked towards Mo Yinshi, who was not far away. His face was flushed red and he held a wine gourd in his hand, taking a sip from time to time. Seeing this, Mo Yinshi's face was full of black lines. Bandit Yi, you. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly waved his right hand and the spirit elegant sword landed in his hand. He pointed the sword at Mo Yinshi and said angrily, who are you? Why did you trespass into my Songlan Academy? With that, he directly rushed towards Mo Yinshi with the sword in hand. One sword to determine life and death. This sword directly decided life and death with a single sword. Seeing this sword, Mo Yinshi's expression changed and he turned to run. At the side, Bai Zai buried his head in the ground and did not move at all. He silently said, can't see me. Can't see me. P.S. I am currently studying in Beijing. I will try my best to keep up with updates. However, if there is a day where I don't update or stop updating, please show mercy. Because I have to go to class. Chapter 113. One sword to decide life and death. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe were very familiar with this move. It was definitely Yi Xian's strongest killing move. Facing Yi Xian's move, Mo Yunqi had no desire to fight at all. He immediately ran away. Bai Zhe also did not dare to take this move, so he chose to play dead. Right now, Yi Xian was obviously drunk, so it was better to temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack. However, at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. The exquisite sword also stopped on the spot. Soon, Yi Xian fell straight to the ground. Obviously, his drunkenness had dissipated a little. In the distance, Mo Yunqi stopped. He turned his head to look at Yi Xian lying on the ground, sighed softly, and walked back. Under the moonlight, the three of them lay in front of a huge rock. Yi Xian leaned against the rock. He looked up at the sky, thinking about something. Mo Yunqi and Bai Zhe leaned on his left and right sides. The three of them did not speak for a long time. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Rebuilding Songlan Academy and avenging Old Man Ji will be very difficult and very dangerous. You too." "Stop." Mo Yunqi suddenly said, "Bandit Yi. You mean to say that you want us to leave?" Yi Xian was silent. He knew that revenge was a very difficult thing to do. He did not know how powerful the Green Province's Dark World or Tsangmu Academy were, but he knew that they were definitely not something they could fight against now. As for those two forces, they might not take this lying down. Apart from that, he still had to go to the Tsanglan General Academy of the Divine Central Continent. Naturally, he would not go there to reason with them. In this world, if one wanted to reason with them, they had to first use their fists. Only when their fists were stronger than others would others reason with you. The road ahead would be very difficult. At this moment, Mo Yunqi said in a low voice, "Bandit Yi, we know that the road ahead will be very difficult. It is precisely because of this that we cannot let you go alone." As he spoke, he took a step back, looked at the horizon, and softly said, "No matter what the future holds, we will shoulder it together. If we can withstand it, then we will walk down it together. If we can't, then we will die together. Although I don't want to die, I don't want to be a coward. Also, Old Man Ji didn't just die for you. He also died for me and Big Guy. His revenge, his wish, we have the responsibility to fulfill it for him." Bai Zhe nodded. "Let's do it together." As he spoke, he clenched his right hand tightly. In an instant, his entire right arm swelled up, and the veins on it bulged. It was an extremely shocking sight. Bai Zhe looked at Yi Xian and said seriously, "I can activate the bloodline in my body soon. I can fight very well." Mo Yunqi glanced at Bai Zhe. "Big Guy, you have the bloodline of a demonic beast in your body. What kind of demonic beast are you?" As he said this, he shook his head. "If it wasn't for your master's help, I wouldn't have any hope of advancing in this life. Many people, it's not that they don't have the talent, it's not that they don't work hard enough, it's that they don't have the money." Yi Xian nodded. "I understand." The 9th floor master nodded. "Cultivation is burning money. For you, there are still many areas where you need money. Especially you swordsmen. You need all kinds of cultivation resources. When the time comes, you will feel very poor." Yi Xian smiled. "When the time comes, I might need to borrow some money from your esteemed building." The 9th floor master laughed. "No problem. As long as little friend asks, this old man will do his best." Yi Xian chuckled. At this moment, the 9th floor master suddenly said seriously, "Little friend, you might have to be careful." "Huh? Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. The ninth floor master said solemnly, I received news from headquarters that I'm going there personally. Dark Realm and Karaki Academy might not let this matter rest. Yi Xian said solemnly, even a sword immortal can't suppress them? The ninth floor master shook his head. I can. But I can't suppress the people in the Central Plains. When he spoke up to hear, he paused for a moment and said, the pavilion master of our Immortal Indulgence Inn in Pine Prefecture sent me a message. He said that something big might be happening in the Dark Dimension and Karaki Academy, so your master should be careful. Sword immortals were strong and rare, but they were not invincible. Yi Xian nodded with a solemn expression. Thank you for the reminder, Senior. Also, I hope that Senior and your esteemed building can help investigate. Please inform me at any time if there's any news. The ninth floor master nodded. Of course. Our drunken immortal inn has always been paying attention to this matter. Also, little friend, it's best if you remind your master to be on guard, because those people might not come in an open and above-board manner. They will definitely do it from the shadows. Especially the Dark Realm. Those fellows are assassins, so it's absolutely impossible for them to come openly. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. The ninth floor master nodded slightly. Take care, little friend. Also, the higher-ups have instructed that if your master needs help, just say the word. Our drunken immortal inn is willing to dispatch experts above the myriad Dharma realm from the Central Plains. Roping them in. This time, it wasn't just roping in Yi Xian, it was roping in the sword immortal behind Yi Xian. The higher-ups of drunken immortal inn were obviously not stupid. A sword immortal and a youth that might become a sword immortal in the future were definitely roped in. Moreover, they had to pay a certain price. Yi Xian cupped his fists once more. Thank you for your kind intentions. However, I can't make the decision. I have to consult my master first. The ninth floor master smiled. Understood. He naturally knew that sword immortals generally didn't like owing favors. If Yi Xian's master didn't agree, then they wouldn't dare make the decision to send someone to help. A short moment later, the ninth floor master left. Yi Xian was the only one left in the Hall of Storms. Yi Xian turned around and went to the bamboo forest at the back of the mountain. He sat down cross-legged on the ground and then entered the first level of the prison pagoda. He looked up at the top of the pagoda and said in a deep voice, Senior, someone is coming to beat you up. What are your thoughts on this matter? He was definitely panicking. The other side clearly knew that he was a sword immortal, yet they still wanted to target him. This person was definitely someone at a higher level than Old Man Ji and the others. This kind of person, the four of them were definitely not a match for him. After waiting for a long time, there was no response. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Senior, this time there might be many very, very powerful people coming to beat you up. Aren't you panicking? At this moment, a white piece of paper suddenly floated out from the second floor. Yi Xian released his sword intent. Through his sword intent's perception, he felt what was drawn on the paper. The paper was filled with claw marks. Densely packed claw marks. Yi Xian's face darkened. What is the meaning of this? Pa. At this moment, Yi Xian flew out without any warning. Finally, he smashed heavily into the pagoda wall not far away. Yi Xian crawled up from the ground. There was an additional claw mark on his face. At this moment, another piece of paper floated out from the second floor. On it, there were still densely packed claw marks. Yi Xian's face twitched. Great God, I really don't understand this. Pa. Yi Xian flew out without any warning again. After a while, Yi Xian crawled up from the ground. Just as he got up, another piece of paper floated in front of him. There were still many claw marks. Yi Xian said angrily. Damn it, who can understand this? Can't you write a few words? Claw, who the hell can understand this thing of yours? You. Pa. Yi Xian flew out again. Great God, stop playing. Qingzhou, Great Cloud Realm. Kuraki Academy, in front of Haran Palace. Two old men stood quietly. One was wearing a white robe and the other was wearing a black robe. Both of them looked extremely similar. Both of them were looking up at the green sword above Haran Palace. Not far behind the two old men were Mu Qingxian and the others. After an unknown period of time, the white-robed old man said softly, "Although this person's sword is swift and fierce, it has no sword intent. Or rather, the sword intent has dispersed. For the sword intent to disperse, it means that this person might not be a sword immortal. He's a sword emperor. Not a sword immortal." Mu Qingxian and the others suddenly looked up at the white-robed old man. Beside the white-robed old man, the black-robed old man nodded. "Our Kuraki Academy basically knows all the sword immortals of the divine central continent. We have never heard of this person. He shouldn't be a sword immortal." The white-robed old man nodded. "Since he's not a sword immortal, we naturally have to kill him." The black-robed old man nodded. "Kill him." Chapter 114. It wasn't a sword immortal. Mu Xianqing and the others were very excited at this moment. After all, the reason why Kuraki Academy was so afraid was because they thought the owner of the sword was a sword immortal. A sword immortal. They were naturally afraid, or rather afraid. But what if it wasn't a sword immortal? Then what was there to be afraid of? What was there to be afraid of? At this moment, everyone from Kuraki Academy was filled with fighting spirit. At this moment, the white-robed old man suddenly turned around. "Have the people from Dark World arrived?" Mu Xianqing was about to speak, but the white-robed old man and the black-robed old man suddenly looked up at the sky. There, an old man was floating over on a bamboo. The old man was wearing a purplish-golden robe. Around the robe, there were some unknown ghostly figures that looked rather horrifying. Soon, the old man landed in front of Mu Xianqing and the others. The old man looked at the white-robed old man and the black-robed old man and smiled. "So it's the two elders of Kuraki Academy." The white-robed old man cupped his fists. "You are?" The old man shook his head and smiled. "You two should know the rules of Dark World. Only the dead know our names. Dark World assassins. There was an unwritten rule among the Dark World assassins. That was, only the dead could know their names." The white-robed old man glanced at the old man with the bamboo. "Now?" The old man with the bamboo smiled. "Wait a moment, we're waiting for one more person." "Who?" the white-robed old man asked. The bamboo old man looked up at the sky and smiled. "A swordsman." "A swordsman." The white-robed old man squinted his eyes. Obviously, it wasn't an ordinary swordsman. At this moment, the black-robed old man suddenly said, "If we kill her, how will we split it?" The bamboo old man smiled. "Dark World only wants her corpse. The golden core will belong to Kuraki Academy. If she has other treasures, we'll split them evenly. How about it?" The white-robed old man fell silent. Corpse. The corpse of a sword emperor-level swordsman was very valuable. It should be said to be priceless. Especially to swordsmen, it was very valuable to research. Similarly, the golden dawn in one's body were also very precious. Although it was not as precious as the golden core of a sword immortal, it was still very precious. A moment later, the white-robed old man nodded. "All right." The bamboo old man smiled and said, "Then there is no disagreement." Once that swordsman arrived, he would head to Qingzhou. "But those Dao protectors?" The white-robed old man said indifferently, "Everything has been arranged. My Kuraki Academy still has this bit of face." The long bamboo old man's lips curled up. "That's great." Qingzhou. Sanglan Academy, Back Mountain. Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. Countless sword intents and sword rays gathered around him. Sword Eye. For the past few days, he had been madly cultivating the sword eye. For him now, the most pressing matter at hand was to cultivate the sword eye. Unfortunately, it was too difficult. In order to gather the sword intents and sword rays into his eyes, he had to compress them to the limit. Moreover, he had to forcefully control the sword intents and sword rays. This was the most difficult part, and also the reason why he had failed several times before. Fortunately, his body was strong enough to withstand the destruction of the sword intents and sword rays. It should be said that this sword eye, probably only a swordsman with a strong body like him could cultivate it. On the other side, in front of a mountain wall, Biyao was madly slamming into the mountain wall. The bottom of the mountain wall had been smashed beyond recognition by him. After slamming for an unknown amount of time, he stopped. He lay straight on the ground, his whole body twitching, and on his upper body, his muscles were bulging, his veins were wriggling like little snakes. At a glance, it was a terrifying sight. After resting for a moment, Biyao took out a white jade bottle. Inside were body-tempering pills. One pill was worth around 300,000 gold coins. This bottle of pills was bought by Yi Xian for him, and there were a total of 20 pills. Looking at the white jade bottle in his hand, Biyao had a complicated look in his eyes. Although Bandit Yi would usually go crazy when he was drunk, he really took good care of him, Mo Yinqi, and Jianghu. Aside from cultivating, the three of them would let Yi Xian handle everything else for them. This was also the reason why the three of them were so eager to become stronger, because they did not want Yi Xian to bear everything alone. If there was anything, they would face it together. And if they wanted to face it together, they could only become stronger, and work hard to become stronger. Otherwise, not only would they not be able to face it, they might even be a burden. Biyao took a deep breath and swallowed a body-tempering pill. After about a quarter of an hour, he stood up and once again rammed into the mountain wall. Bang! The entire mountain wall shook violently. This went on for an unknown amount of time. Boom! Suddenly, at one point, Biyao directly crashed into one of the mountain walls, and his whole body was thrown backward heavily. Bang! He directly smashed a huge pit in the ground. Inside the deep pit, Biyao's body kept twitching as if he was having an epileptic fit. The veins on his body began to violently tremble, and not only that, the blood vessels under his skin also began to bulge. This went on for about an hour. Roar! Inside the deep pit, Biyao suddenly roared angrily, and in the blink of an eye, the deep pit began to collapse layer by layer. After about 15 minutes, Biyao suddenly jumped out of the deep pit. At this moment, his body was actually a size larger than before. Most importantly, he had actually reached the nether passage realm. Other than that, there was a mysterious violent energy around his body, and at this moment, his eyes did not look like a human's eyes at all, but more like a beast's eyes. After an unknown amount of time, Biyao slowly clenched his fists. The power of the bloodline has finally been activated. Yes, go beat up Bandit Yi. Defeat him, and I will be the big brother. After saying that, he directly ran towards the bamboo forest where Yi Xian was. Very quickly, he arrived at the bamboo forest where Yi Xian was. He was about to rush over, but very quickly, he stopped. At this moment, Yi Xian's body was emitting an extremely terrifying sword intent and sword light, especially in his eyes. The two balls of sword light mixed with sword intent were like two balls of lightning, incomparably terrifying. Other than that, the exquisite spirit sword floating beside Yi Xian was also trembling violently, and the power it emitted directly minced the surrounding air. Seeing this scene, Biyao hesitated for a long time. He thought for a moment, then said softly, Bandit Yi is actually quite a good person. You should go beat up Mo Jinmao. After saying that, he turned around and left. He left without the slightest hesitation. Not long after, Biyao arrived at the bottom of a cliff. He raised his head and looked up. Above the cliff, a figure like a spirit ape was constantly jumping between the mountain walls. It was Mo Yinqi. The mountain wall was very steep, but Mo Yinqi walked as if he was walking on flat ground. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast, like a gust of wind. Bai Zai suddenly shouted, "Mo Jin Mao, come down and fight one-on-one." On the mountain wall, Mo Yinshi paused slightly. In the next moment, his figure flashed and directly appeared in front of Bai Zai. Mo Yinshi sized up Bai Zai. Just as he was about to speak, Bai Zai went up and punched him. Bang! Caught off guard, Mo Yinshi was directly sent flying by this punch. However, he flashed a few times in the air and forcefully dissipated the power in Bai Zai's fist. Purely using speed to dissipate power. After Mo Yinshi landed steadily on the ground, he looked at Bai Zai and said angrily, "Big guy, are you itching for a beating? You." At this moment, Bai Zai suddenly rushed towards Mo Yinshi. Mo Yinshi's expression changed slightly, F***CK. "I will kill you." After saying that, his figure trembled and turned into a series of afterimages as he shot towards Bai Zai. Very quickly, the two of them once again fought. Bai Zai's power undoubtedly crushed Mo Yinshi's. However, Mo Yinshi's speed undoubtedly crushed Bai Zai's too. Mo Yinshi was also very smart. He did not fight head-on with Bai Zai. Instead, he used guerrilla warfare. For a moment, the two of them were unable to determine the victor. On the other side, in the bamboo forest, Yi Xian was still sitting cross-legged on the ground. His eyes were tightly shut and his entire body was trembling non-stop. Just like that, after an unknown period of time, he suddenly opened his eyes. In his eyes, 2 balls of sword radiance shot out like 2 bolts of lightning. Chi! In an instant, the bamboo in front of Yi Xian was instantly crushed into powder. As for Yi Xian, he fell straight down. The moment he closed his eyes, 2 balls of sword radiance mixed with endless sword essence quietly condensed in his eyes. Sword Eye. After experiencing countless failures, he finally succeeded in cultivating this sword eye. It could be said that this sword eye was a cultivation method and also a sword skill. As for one sword soul fixation, he did not want to cultivate this move that targeted the soul at the moment. It was better not to bite off more than one could chew. Cultivating the sword eye to the extreme was the way to go. Sword skills were not about quantity, but quality. After resting for an unknown period of time, Yi Xian slowly sat up. He was about to cultivate again when a figure suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was the 9th floor master. The 9th floor master had a panicked expression. "Young friend, there's news from Azure Province's Drunken Immortal Inn. The experts from Kuraki Academy and the Dark World are already on their way to Azure Province. They should be experts from the Divine Central Continent." Yi Xian stood up. "They're already here?" The 9th floor master said in a low voice, "This time, they should be here for your master." "Young friend, does your master need any help?" "Help?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Until now, the mysterious woman had not replied to him at all. He did not know whether she needed help or not. At this moment, an invisible pressure suddenly enveloped the entire Mount Azure billow. As this pressure appeared, the 9th floor master's expression changed drastically. "They're here so quickly." Yi Xian looked up into the sky. In the air, 4 people had appeared. One was a black-robed old man, one was a white-robed old man, one was a middle-aged man with a great sword on his back, and one was an old man standing on a long bamboo. All 4 of them were above the peak of the myriad arts realm. Yi Xian's expression darkened as he asked inwardly, "Sister Sword Immortal? Someone is coming to beat you up. What do you think of this?" At this moment, within Yi Xian's body, at the top of the domain tower, one of the swords gently moved. In an instant, the entire domain tower shook as if there was an earthquake. Boom! In an instant, blood flowed from Yi Xian's orifices. "I never thought that there would be a half-demon here, and one that has awakened the power of his bloodline. Although he's only at the nether passage stage, I'm afraid that even divine combination stage experts can't do anything to him. The white-robed old man nodded. Not bad indeed. The toughness of this body is up to standard. Coupled with the power of his bloodline, he can be considered outstanding. Speaking of this, his gaze fell on Mo Yinchi again. Mo Yinchi hurriedly straightened his back. The white-robed old man frowned when he saw Mo Yinchi. Useless. Mo Yinchi almost went berserk. At this time, the white-robed old man's gaze shifted back to Mo Yinchi. This time, there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. Special physique? This is the light physique. Light physique. In the air, several people's gazes fell on Mo Yinchi. The four of them all had a hint of surprise in their eyes. In this world, some people were special. This special referred to talent, while some referred to physique. There were some special constitutions that could allow one to achieve twice the results with half the effort. And with Mo Yinchi's light physique, if he cultivated some Qigong cultivation techniques, it would be too heaven-defying. The bamboo old man suddenly smiled. Are you willing to join my dark world? If you are, I can spare your life today. Dark world. Obviously, in the bamboo old man's opinion, Mo Yinchi was very suitable to be an assassin. Indeed, if Mo Yinchi cultivated the ghostly cultivation techniques of the dark world, he would definitely be very heaven-defying. Seeing the bamboo old man openly recruiting Mo Yinchi, the white-robed old man and the black-robed old man were stunned. But very quickly, they felt relieved. The two of them looked at each other, then looked at Biyao. The white-robed old man said, Are you willing to join my Kuraki Academy? If you are willing, I can spare your life today. Biyao and Mo Yinchi were stunned. Obviously, the two of them did not expect that they would be recruited. Biyao and Mo Yinchi looked at each other. Finally, Mo Yinchi raised his head and looked at the bamboo old man. He grinned. Although I am very afraid of death and do not want to die, it is impossible for me to betray Tsanglan Academy. Not in this lifetime. Biyao nodded. I only recognized Tsanglan Academy. Tsanglan Academy. This place was their home. In the air, the bamboo old man said indifferently. Staying here is equivalent to throwing your lives away. With the talent of the two of you, you will definitely have a good future. Biyao looked at Mo Yinchi. Mo Yinchi, help me tell them that I will not leave Tsanglan Academy. And tell them to scram. Mo Yinchi glared at Biyao. Damn it. They are right there. Do you still want me to tell you? Biyao said coldly. I do not want to talk to them. Mo Yinchi was speechless. In the air, the white-robed old man shook his head. Since you do not cherish this opportunity, then stay here and turn into dust. The bamboo old man nodded. Don't force it. There are many geniuses out there. At this moment, the black-robed old man suddenly looked at Jianghu. The bamboo old man, the white-robed old man, and the middle-aged man with a huge sword also looked at Jianghu. Jianghu was expressionless. He took out a bun and took 2 bites. After a while, the white-robed old man shook his head. There is nothing special about him. However, he has comprehended the sword intent. Speaking of this, the few of them looked serious. He did not have any special talent but comprehended the sword intent. This seemed very ordinary, but it was not ordinary. Jianghu came here with the most ordinary talent. This meant that no matter in terms of temperament or hard work, he was definitely the best. This kind of person was often the most terrifying. The white-robed old man looked at Jianghu. I think you will not leave Tsanglan Academy. That's good. It saves us from wasting our breath. Then he turned around to look at Yi Xian, who was not far away. As the white-robed old man's gaze fell on Yi Xian, everyone's gaze fell on Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Without a doubt, he was the most dazzling person in Jianghu country. He was even more dazzling than in Lanxiu. The white-robed old man and the others looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. At this moment, Yi Xian was expressionless. He looked very calm, but he was actually panicking. Because the mysterious woman had not responded at all. Yi Xian smiled bitterly in his heart. Senior, these people are here for you. You can't ignore them. The mysterious woman still did not respond. Even though she did not respond, a piece of paper floated out from the second level. Yi Xian's expression changed drastically when he saw the piece of paper, and he hurriedly withdrew his consciousness and left the pagoda. I can't afford to offend her. I can't afford to offend her. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the old man and the others. Meanwhile, the old man spoke flatly. It's simply rare for someone at the peak of the Ascension realm to possess such a solid foundation. Not only have you comprehended sword intent, you've also comprehended battle intent. You cultivate both the sword and martial arts. Moreover, your physical body is so formidable. Rare indeed. With your strength, you'll at least be able to enter the top 10 of the martial rankings. If you attain the Nether Passage realm, you'll probably be able to enter the top 5. The black-robed old man nodded. It's truly rare in the borders of Jianghu country. It's rare even in the entire Pine Prefecture. Your strength will probably surpass Tuoba Fu of Ning country in the future. When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at the bamboo old man. What do you think? The bamboo old man smiled indifferently. The more monstrous he is, the more he deserves death. The surroundings instantly fell silent. The white-robed old man and black-robed old man glanced at Yi Xian and remained silent. Death. They naturally wouldn't allow a person like Yi Xian to grow. In their opinion, if they couldn't become friends and instead became enemies, then they naturally had to eliminate Yi Xian to avoid leaving any future troubles. Right at this moment, the man with the huge sword on his back suddenly gazed at Yi Xian. What sword intent is that? Sword intent. Yi Xian shook his head. Actually, he really didn't know what sword intent it was, and he was very curious about it as well. Once the mysterious woman emerged, he would definitely get to the bottom of it. The problem was, when would the mysterious woman emerge? He really couldn't defeat these 4 people before him. Otherwise, he would have fucking drawn his sword a long time ago. In midair, the white-robed old man glanced at the surroundings. In the end, his gaze descended onto Yi Xian. Your master still hasn't shown himself? Yi Xian didn't answer him, and he spoke in a low voice in his heart. Sword Celestial Sister. Stop sleeping, wake up quickly. There's a fight. There was still no response. Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. Wasn't this a trap for his disciple? In midair, the white-robed old man suddenly said, looks like we still have to exert some pressure on her. As soon as he finished speaking, his right hand pressed down towards Yi Xian and the other 3. Boom! A monstrous pressure descended from the sky like dozens of mountains, instantly causing Yi Xian and the other 3 to almost kneel down. However, the 4 of them forcefully endured it. However, almost instantly, blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. At this moment, the 4 of them couldn't breathe and felt as if their bodies were about to collapse. Yi Xian suddenly let out a furious roar, and a powerful battle intent surged out of his body. However, very quickly, this battle intent was forcefully suppressed back into his body by the pressure. Yi Xian stomped his right foot and his battle intent soared into the sky again. This time, apart from battle intent, there was also sword intent. The 2 intents merged into one and forcefully resisted the white-robed old man's pressure. The white-robed old man's eyes narrowed slightly. The combination of 2 intents. You're actually able to combine them like this. As he spoke, he pressed his right hand down. Crack. In an instant, the ground beneath Yi Xian's group started to crack inch by inch. However, Yi Xian's group of 4 forcefully resisted it, and none of them knelt down. The white-robed old man was about to attack again. However, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and roared furiously, I'll fucking kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot against the ground and shot into the sky. He couldn't defeat the white-robed old man. However, Yi Xian intended to fight him. Even if he died, he intended to attack with this sword strike. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the white-robed old man's mouth, and then he pressed his right hand down lightly. Bang! Yi Xian was instantly pressed down to the ground, and he'd just descended to the ground when the ground beneath his feet instantly split open into a deep pit that was over 10 m deep. The white-robed old man was just about to attack when a voice suddenly resounded, "All of you were looking for me?" The white-robed old man and the others swiftly turned their heads, and they saw a woman in a plain dress standing on a leaf in a bamboo forest in the distance. She had one hand behind her back, and there was a black and 100 tails of silver coiled around her fingertips. The white-robed old man and the others instantly became vigilant when they saw the woman. Meanwhile, the woman pointed at Yi Xian, "Close your eyes. I'm going to clear this place." As soon as she finished speaking, she stretched out her left hand and opened her palm, sword. The pagoda of purgatory within Yi Xian's body suddenly shook violently, and then one of the 3 swords at the top of the pagoda shook violently. Chapter 116. Just as the sword at the top of the pagoda trembled violently, Yi Xian's head seemed to have been struck by a heavy blow. His consciousness blurred and at the same time, blood flowed out of his 7 apertures. It was a terrifying sight. Mo Yunqi and the other two's expressions changed drastically when they saw this. They hurriedly supported Yi Xian. Just then, the lady in the plain dress pressed her left hand down lightly. "I'm not talking to you." Her voice faded away. The sword that was trembling in Yi Xian's body calmed down completely. However, before it calmed down, it let out a slight sword hum as if it was trying to express something. Above the bamboo forest, the lady in the plain dress opened her left hand. "Sword, come." As the plain-dressed woman's voice fell, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The entire bamboo forest suddenly trembled. Very quickly, under the gazes of the crowd, the bamboo leaves soared into the sky and gathered towards the woman in the plain dress. These leaves fell into the palm of the woman in the plain dress. Very quickly, a sword that was condensed from countless bamboo leaves appeared in the palm of the woman in the plain dress. Seeing this, the expressions of the old man in white and the others changed drastically. Especially the swordsman who carried a huge sword on his back. What technique is this? I've never seen or heard of such a technique. Below, Mo Yunqi and the others were dumbfounded. Back then, they had seen the lady in the plain dress. When they saw the lady in the plain dress slaughtering everyone, they were already extremely shocked. However, they had never asked Yi Xian about the mysterious lady. Respect. Because they knew that when the time came, Yi Xian would definitely take the initiative to talk about it. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the lady in the plain dress. Actually, just like everyone else, he was extremely shocked. The mysterious lady. She was really mysterious. From the beginning to the end, she was a mystery. He didn't know where the lady in front of him came from. All he knew was that she was very strong. Very strong. And every time the mysterious lady came out, the guy on the second floor would be extremely quiet. In the air. The old man in white and the others stared at the lady in the plain dress. At this moment, their eyes were filled with fear and seriousness. Although the lady in the plain dress didn't attack, they actually felt an invisible pressure. Especially that move of the woman in a simple dress, it caused the 4 of them to be incomparably fearful. Above the bamboo forest, the woman in the plain dress pointed her bamboo sword at the white-robed old man and the other 3. "Come, let's attack together." Attack together. The surroundings were so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. Down below, Mo Yun raised his right arm and lightly poked Yi Xian's arm. "Bandit Yi, where did you find this master? Introduce me to one, I'll go find one as well." Yi Xian said sternly, "You can't." "Why?" Mo Yunqi was puzzled. "Am I not handsome enough?" Ugh. At the side, Baizhe made a very exaggerated gesture of vomiting. Ji Anji had originally taken a bite of the steamed bun, but after hearing Mo Yinqi's words, she actually spat out the steamed bun. It was truly a bit nauseating. Yi Xian patted Mo Yinqi's shoulder lightly. I used to think that you were narcissistic, but I was wrong. You're not narcissistic, are you blind, handsome? What do you have to do with this word? Mo Yinqi, at this moment, the middle-aged man with a sword on his back suddenly walked over to the left of the woman in the plain dress. The man stared fixedly at the woman. I know a little about the famous sword emperors and sword immortals of the central divine continent, but I don't. The woman in the plain dress suddenly pointed her sword at Yi Xian below. Listen carefully. Yi Xian looked up at the woman and listened seriously. The woman usually didn't like to speak, but when she did, it was absolutely very, very useful. The woman pointed her sword at the nearby middle-aged man. We swordsmen never waste our breath. Since you've learned the sword from me, then you must remember this. If you can resolve it with your sword, then try not to waste your breath. Just do it. As she spoke, she clamped the green sword between her fingers on her left hand. In the next moment, the expression of the nearby middle-aged man changed drastically. In the blink of an eye, he suddenly drew his sword, and then a powerful sword intent shot into the sky from his body. Sword Emperor. It was a sword emperor from the central divine continent. As soon as his monstrous sword intent appeared, everyone in the surroundings felt a strand of invisible pressure press down upon them. Yi Xian's eyes were closed tightly while his body emanated boundless sword intent and battle intent to resist the powerful sword intent. On the other hand, Mo Yinqi's group of 3 were by his side, and they were resisting the sword emperor's sword intent together. In midair, the middle-aged man held his sword close to the center of his forehead, and a strand of light flickered at the tip of his sword. In the distance, the woman who was about to attack suddenly stopped. Her back was still facing them, so no one here was able to see her appearance clearly, including Yi Xian. Up until now, he still hadn't seen her appearance. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at the woman in the distance. Do you dare to resist a strike of my sword? His voice rumbled like thunder and resounded through the sky. Force. Sword force. For the first time, Yi Xian had experienced the force of a swordsman. At this moment, the middle-aged man before him carried a strand of force, and it was an extremely formidable force that was much stronger than his own sword force. A truly formidable swordsman. The woman spoke indifferently. You talk too much. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly relaxed her left hand, and then the bamboo sword in her right hand suddenly flew out. It was an extremely ordinary attack. It was truly extremely ordinary. There was no sword force, no sword intent, and there wasn't even a sword glow. Anyone who witnessed it would only have a single thought in their mind: what an ordinary attack. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. In the next moment, his figure leaped up and swiftly swung his sword down. As soon as this attack descended, countless rays of sword light, sword intent, and sword force instantly erupted like a volcano. This attack seemed like it could shatter the boundless world. Yi Xian and the others had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. If this attack descended onto Meteor Mountain, then the entire mountain would definitely be slashed into pieces. The Sword Emperor. This was the Sword Emperor. A single attack could split open a mountain, shatter the ground, and sever a river. He was a true peerless expert in the world. Where's the mysterious woman? Mo Yinqi and the others gazed at the mysterious woman's attack. The difference between the bamboo sword and the middle-aged man's attack was simply like the difference between the heavens and the earth. Or it should be said that the two of them couldn't be compared at all. However, when the bamboo sword arrived before the middle-aged man, hiss! Everyone watched as the bamboo sword shattered all the sword intent, sword force, sword light, and sword chi that the middle-aged man's sword emanated. In an instant, it was practically capable of destroying everything. Hiss! The bamboo sword suddenly stabbed into the center of the middle-aged man's forehead. The surroundings fell silent once more, and it was deathly silent. Instant annihilation? The eyes of the white-robed old man and the others were filled with disbelief, or it should be said that it was terror. Terror. It was actually an instant annihilation. That was a sword emperor. Even a sword immortal couldn't instantly annihilate a sword emperor with such ease. That was the reason why they were terrified. Even a sword immortal couldn't instantly annihilate a sword emperor, but the woman before them had. Who exactly is she? The white-robed old man and the others were completely dumbstruck at this moment. On the other hand, the 9th Pavilion Master of the Immortal Indulgence shook his head and laughed bitterly in secret. Now he finally understood why the mysterious woman before him hadn't asked the Immortal Indulgence for help. At the same time, he felt fortunate that the Immortal Indulgence hadn't gone against Yi Xian to the death like Kuraki Academy had, and they'd stopped in time and tried their best to rope Yi Xian in. Otherwise, the Immortal Indulgence would have probably suffered a huge setback. This might even be the lightest punishment. The woman in the plain dress snorted, and then turned to look at the white-robed elder and the other two. She said angrily, "What are you looking at? Did I allow you to look?" As her voice fell, a bamboo leaf sword shot out like lightning. Chi! Beside the white-robed elder, the head of the black-robed elder flew out without any warning. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.